Yeah, that's not a
It's like
bad
taking insurance.
Yeah.
New insurance agent.
Training.
Take the guy out of the circus.
We don't have any more of these.
Don't think so.
Pat, you don't have any other public comments?
No, I can. Oh, so like if,
Nope.
Jim.
No, I don't think so. Jim, just want to make sure.
Oh, that's.
Do you want to talk, Lisa?
I think there's a bunch of people on that list that.
Oh, yeah?
I can just go off the list.
Why don't you call it to order? Check and see if there's any sign.
Still have our mics on, folks?
Yes.
Well, welcome, everyone. I heard a rumor before I start this meeting that it might start raining in Oregon, just so you know. So tomorrow is the day. Anyway, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Matt, would you like to pledge allegiance tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. It looks like we have all of our board members here. Thank you for coming, guys. And I need to move for the approval of the agenda as amended. And there were two amendments that came in. One was, I think, for our insurance services that's under our consent agenda, and there was another one from an individual on, I think, the Ewing Young Bridge. So you have that information in your packet. So I need to have someone move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll move so as stated.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, unanimous. Okay, and now we have public participation, and I appreciate you coming to participate. Sometimes the meetings are kind of quiet, so it's great to have people tell us how they feel about things. But with that said, I can read you, there's a long diatribe here that talks about public meetings and so on. We want to try to keep public participation to about 30 minutes and 3 minutes each. And what I don't want to do is interrupt you, so if we could keep it at that 3 minutes, I'd really, really, really appreciate it. So with that said, I've got two forms that were filled out here, and then I'll go down the list if you didn't fill out a form, because we ran out of them over there, I think. So the first person we have here is Tamara Bush, and if you could go to the microphone, and we'll give you 3 minutes. Thank you so much for coming. And this, okay, microphone's on, thanks.
Okay. Is it on? Okay, perfect. My name is Tamara Bush Johnson. I live on Lad Hill Road, Wilsonville, and I am here tonight representing the Lad Hill Neighborhood Association, which is an association of people who live on the Lad Hill area, both that are might be in Yamhill, and it might be in Clackamas County. I'm here representing the Lad Hill Association. Carol Dinger is the co-president representing Clackamas County, and Cole Prestos is representing Yamhill County. He's the other co-chair. And I gave each of you quite a bit of information. One was the press release that will give you a little bit more background. I have some copies also for the audience. A demand letter from our lawyer that we needed to hire. Also a demand letter from the Oregon Department of Justice, and then a sample letter of support. I want to make it easy for you to perhaps help support us in this effort. And what this is about is, in fact, Clay thought it was a good idea. I think you might have talked to Carol or someone, thought it might be of interest to you folks, which is why I'm here. The LHNA, I'll do an abbreviation to save on time, is urging the World Forestry Center, who is to cancel its sealed bid auction of a 64-acre wildfire sanctuary gifted for the public nearly 50 years ago. The auction is scheduled for November 12th, and the LHNA just really heard about it the first part of October. The Magnus Memorial Tree Farm was donated in 1977 by Howard and Pansy Magnus to the Oregon Parks Foundation, and then pretty rapidly transferred to the World Forestry Center with legal conditions that it maintained as wildlife preservation, a sanctuary, also for the study of nature. They had also tree growing classes there and all sorts of Cub Scouts. There are cabins there on the property, lots of trails, beautiful trails, and picnic area. And all the neighbors around, we have been flooded with emails and letters of support saying, how could they sell this? You know, and they have it up advertising really as for tree farmers to come and cut the forest. So we have hired an attorney, and the attorney is pretty candid about the binding obligations of the Magnus property, that it's not a real estate to be sold, but it's a public trust, and they have broken that trust. So you have those letters, those demand letters that were sent to the World Forestry Center in front of you. The Oregon Department of Justice is also very concerned about it. And there is a demand order also from them to the World Forestry Center. And it's asking them to explain its actions in listing the property for sale and to produce those relevant documents. That the state has requested that the sale of this property be postponed because it's coming up so shortly. And we'd like to be able to find then another trustee or some organization to be able to take it on, like the World Forestry Center had done for 40 years, but now they just no longer want to run that. I guess they don't have the money to keep it open. I'm getting at the end. So I also have a copy of a letter of support to try to make it easy for you to help support us, and just write a letter saying, please postpone this until we can kind of sort this out, even if we have to go to court with it. So, questions?
This is in Clackamas County.
Just on the edge, yeah,
Okay.
it's that Lad Hill, Clackamas,
Okay.
Washington County practically, you know, it's all where it comes together there,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
We'll read your material, you gave us a lot, so I'm
Yes.
sure the board members will check that out. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
I do have one question for staff, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just curious if you can get back to us if it's within the scope of the board to support this type of situation.
The board as a body can choose to support or not support whatever it chooses, but you should do so carefully, particularly when it falls outside of your jurisdiction.
Sure.
So this property is located outside of the jurisdiction. The reason that I attended was because they're a property that's located near our jurisdiction and was formerly doing activities very similar to what we do, which is offering outdoor recreation education opportunities. So it was kind of a checking on the neighbors, seeing what was going on with a significant sized property and not committing to those. But when I attended the meeting that Tamara alluded to, they kind of asked our opinion. And I said, you know, if this is something where you're interested in support, then you would need to do that with the board. Staff can't unilaterally decide to do that. The other thing that I mentioned is that it might be reasonable to simply let the board members know, because each of you have different networks and may have folks that you want to tell about this or advise and those sorts of things. This, the meeting and these other things were shared with some of our local folks too. I know that our bicycling community is really interested, obviously, in where they used to ride and are still looking for a property, which we hope to work on. But in that interim, if they have networks or they wanted to share it with theirs, I shared the information about both the auction and the community meeting to those community members for whom I had contact information as well. So that's kind of the nexus there, where it was kind of a neighboring property that might be of interest because of similar uses. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ed Fredenburg. Talk about footbridge.
My name is Ed Fredenburg. I live in just outside Newberg in housing development, adjacent to the 11 acres that you own. In fact, several of the lots share a property line with your 11 acres. I appeared before this board in the August meeting. I spoke in support of constructing the bridge across Chehalem Creek. And that prompted a letter, I guess, from Yamhill County's planning director, Ken Friday, in late September. So I'm here today to respond to a couple of points made in that letter. First of all, the planning director misspelled my last name, spelled B-U-R-G, not B-E-R-G. And I was kind of surprised at that because I had occasion to interact with him for a period of weeks during the summer on another issue I won't go into because I'm limited by time. Anyway, so I'm going to speak to the couple of points he made in the letter. He made a statement that all bridges in Yamhill County parks were zoned, that are zoned PRO, parks, recreation, open space, were constructed long before the 2018 LUBA decision, Van Dyke versus Yamhill County. That is not true. Not that it matters, but it's not true. In Deer Creek Park, I showed photos of a vehicle bridge and a footbridge. Those were constructed in 2023. And as I'll explain later, those bridges would have been allowed as under the category of accessory use. But then it would be difficult to explain why a footbridge in zone PRO is okay, but would not be allowed for the identical reason in zone AF10. And in several places, the letter misrepresents the LUBA decision by implying it was a final definitive decision. To provide a little context here, the LUBA decision concerned a proposed 12-mile recreational trail on an abandoned railroad right-of-way that Yamhill County supported at the time, and which farmers on adjoining land opposed. That was in 2018, but Yamhill County commissioners have since decided to side with the farmers and have not appealed the LUBA decision. In fact, I think it's probably too late to appeal the LUBA decision. So the LUBA decision, I'll go into a little more detail why I believe he misrepresented the decision. LUBA decision addressed 6 assignments of error, of which AF10 zoning was only a minor part of the 3rd assignment of error, and addressed in only 1.5 pages of the 27-page decision. Yamhill County's argument in the LUBA case was based on its transportation system plan, which it considered to be governing, not on the zoning ordinance. And the LUBA decision pertained to AF10 zoning, which is the zoning that applies to your 11 acres, was simply to remand the case to Yamhill County. It was not a definitive final decision on whether the Yamhill Trail would violate AF10 zoning requirements. Yamhill County's assertion that the LUBA decision prohibits transportation facilities, including footbridges, in AF10 zoning anywhere and everywhere in Yamhill County is apparently based on a footnote at the bottom of one of the 1.5 pages in the 27-page LUBA decision,
Ed,
which says that petitioners appear to be correct, which is hardly definitive and only applied to the 2018 LUBA case. Got a little bit?
Ed, I don't mean to interrupt,
Yes.
but I do know that we are going to be talking about the Ewing Young Bridge tonight, later in the meeting, because we've run out of time, and we have other folks that want to talk, so, and that information you've submitted to us, correct?
I have that.
As an event, so I encourage the board to read the information that he's reading, and it should be in your packet, so, I don't mean to cut you off, but I
Okay.
got to do it with everybody, so
I
thanks.
defer to your judgment.
All right, appreciate it, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sean Andreas, you're going to be talking a little bit later for us. I'm going through this because we ran out of the forms over there, so is it Dennis, you're going to be talking with the trails a little bit later? Annie, you're going to be with that guy?
Yeah, I'm not speaking.
Okay. All right, as in with Sean. And then we have Lisa Rogers. Would you like to speak on the footbridge?
Yes, please.
And so one thing that I did forget is I need to have people express what their address is. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Lisa Rogers, 509 South College Street in Newberg. I'm here in support of getting a bridge put across from the Ewing Young Park to the other piece of property. And I feel like when I was on the board, I was very clear that that was one of my priorities. A couple of years ago, we decided that because of we had had that LUBA case, but the lawyer did say that it wasn't written the right way. We were supposed to have gotten in touch with the county and tried to figure out what could be done in order to get the bridge done. That still hasn't happened. You have 11 acres that you don't have access to. It's a liability, it's also a resource, and it's a resource this community should be able to access. I think that if we are not going to go back to the county in terms of trying to negotiate with them, then I think that you guys should put just put another application in, and if it gets denied, go back through the LUBA process in the appropriate way, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And this is a really dense area of the community, and it's a space where you have the land, it won't take much, it's probably paths and some disc golf as well. And I just feel like it would be a really good idea for you all to consider pushing this forwards. It's been 8 years and nothing's happened. So it'd be great if we could try to do something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Rogers?
Hi, good evening, board members, staff. First off, thank you for your service, right? I mean, you all do this, you all do it as a job, but public servants, it's more than a job. But anyway, the thing I'd like to stress a little bit, again, I also, 509 South College Street, I'm also very much in favor of the bridge over to the 11 acres. I played disc golf for probably 25 years now. If you saw me play, you wouldn't believe it, but it has been 25 years. But I can really, and I think Brian recently drew together a group of people that expressed interest in working with Ewing and hopefully with the additional 11 acres. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the community. Again, I've said this before many times, is that one of the great attractions in this community, if you're not here for wine, or if you're not here for George Fox, the chances are you're here for something for Parks and Rec, right? Whether that's the golf course, whether you're playing softball, playing disc golf. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. At Champooey, they recently did, through a completely volunteer effort, have made it into a tournament level course. I just played it the other day and it was fantastic. And they draw from everywhere. Now, disc golf, again, it's something that someone from the age of 8 until my age and more can play this foolish game. It's very low impact. And the other thing I think what Brian really showed is that there's a group of people that are willing to do the work. So you can corral this volunteerism with only a bridge is all that's needed. And I think that would probably go to raising money, raising bodies, et cetera. So I just strongly encourage you to do it. And as Lisa said, it's in a part of the community that could really use more resources in that area. It's certainly the higher density. Most of the main facilities are on the north side of 99. So anyway, so I'm here, and if I can help, that's the other thing. I mentioned this to Jim. Anything I can do to help to get that through, whatever that process might be, please let me know. I'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no one else under public participation that has signed up. So I'd like to move for a member of our board to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second it.
Is there any discussion?
Just with the addition of the insurance company, I don't have any specific questions, but I just wanted to point that out in case we needed to pull it out and discuss or not. If everybody's okay just keeping it in the consent agenda, then I am as well.
Good with it.
Okay. Okay, so,
I did have a question regarding the purchase of the 5 Workman MDX UTVs. Is that are those UTVs going to be specifically used at the golf course or throughout the entire district? Just talk really
And
loud.
while Brian's working on that mic, I'm getting notes from our IT staff. Please speak directly into your mics, board members. Although the public has done an excellent job, I've been told.
Three of those, Nick, will be used at the golf course full-time, and then a fourth one will be used between the golf course and the property on Wilsonville Road where our greenhouse operation is. And the fifth one will be used on the trails throughout Ewing and Shaw and Buckfield.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I also add something? Our youth football program, they play their football games on Saturday at the high school. Brian and his team let us borrow that Workman to set up the fields, take down the fields. It's a full day. We're there from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And that would be 45,000 steps, for us. So we really appreciate that.
Any other comments? All right, then, can I just have a roll call on approving the consent agenda, please?
Director Smith,
Aye.
Director Fields,
Aye.
Director Conan, Director Slider,
Aye.
Chairman McMaster.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. We have a presentation tonight, which will be exciting to hear. It's a yearly presentation, and Sean Andres is going to come up and give the Chehalem Cultural Center's annual report. Thank you so much.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you, Chair McMaster, members of the board, for having me here today. I look around the room and I see a lot of friendly faces here. So just good to see you, Brian and Julie and Kat and Casey and Clay. It feels like a family environment here, so it's good to be with you. I had intended to come in August to talk about our annual report from 2024. It is now toward the end of October in 2025, so some of this data is a little old, but I think it's still worth revisiting. And Kat, I think we have some slides to share. Richard, maybe? Yeah, Richard, could you put up the slides for us? Hi, Richard, good to see you. Well, I guess I'm not seeing you, but I'll wait for you. Richard took a break and didn't tell anybody.
While we're waiting for that.
Oh, you have them all there too, so that's great. We could.
Right, we've got them in our packet, and I didn't want to steal your thunder either, but I was going to say I was really impressed when I read through your information that you give out $15,000 in scholarships to the kids in the community, which I think
We
is
sure
a great
do.
thing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've been at the Chehalem Cultural Center for 8 years now, and it's absolutely a joy. And every day when I come to work, I'm just like the luckiest guy in the world. I have the coolest job, and I love the work I do, and I love the community I serve. And yeah, we do give out a lot of scholarships to participate in classes. We give out a lot of sponsorship to participate and use the ballroom and other rental spaces we do. We love to see events happen in this community, and we love to be there to make them happen for people. So I'll just kind of walk you through our report here, and if Richard gets that up, we'll go back to it. But at the Chehalem Cultural Center, our mission is to inspire and enrich lives by connecting community and culture. And that's what we try to do every day. And every time we have a question come up about something we're trying to do, we just look back at that mission statement and we say, does this help us inspire and enrich lives? Does this help us connect community and culture? And if the answer is yes, we figure out how to do it. And if the answer is no, then we say, well, how could it be, right? Like, we're here to make things happen. We do that in a number of ways. We teach classes and camps for kids and adults of all ages. We rent spaces to members of our community to help them have the events that they think are important. We put on free community events. We have a beautiful theater now that we present productions in all year round. We have several gallery spaces where we have rotating exhibits all year round that feature local artists as well as regional artists and sometimes even national artists. And we work really hard to make sure that this community has arts and culture to engage with and has the ability to express their culture in a way that's meaningful to them. In 2024, We had 319 kids who took classes. We had 864 adults in our community who took classes. Oh boy, you got it all sideways up there. That's good. And yes, we did give away $15,000 in scholarships. That's a total of 154 scholarships. Honestly, it's a little bit of an undercount, and I know this year we're well ahead of that pace. At the Chehalem Cultural Center, we feel very strongly that the only prerequisite for participating in things at the Cultural Center is that you want to be there. And if financial decisions are going to keep you from being there, we're going to do anything we can to remove those barriers so that you can come and participate just like everybody else. Because everyone has a better time when everyone is there. That's what we think. We teach classes in ceramics, painting, we have embroidery classes, creative writing, we have a science and art club, we have a Muddy Buddies ceramics club for kids 3 years old. We start kids at 3 and we don't ever tell them when to stop. I think our most honored class participant is about 95 these days, which is pretty exciting for all of us. We also do workshops throughout the year. We have ceramics date nights. We have a mosaic glass workshop we've done. We have a botanical body butters class that we've been offering, wine and craft nights, plein air painting classes. And we also have a beautiful ceramics studio. We had over 5,000 hours of ceramic studio time. And next time you're over at the Cultural Center, peek into the ceramic studio. I guarantee you, if you are there, someone is in that room throwing pots because it is the most active member of the most active part of our community. Outside of classes, we also run summer camps every year. We have 8 weeks of summer camps for kids ages 3 to 12. And last summer, in 2024, we had 337 kids participate in camps. That's pretty awesome. We also offer performances to our community. Like I mentioned, we opened a beautiful LaJoy Theater last year in September. So most of this information from 2024 happened not in that LaJoy Theater. And we still had 11,500 people come and watch performances at the Cultural Center. We have community bands. We offer theater performances through our resident companies. We have a resident vaudeville company, if you can believe it, that many of you I know have been a part of over the years. It's in its 3rd year now, is that right? 4th year maybe coming up? It's pretty amazing. 2 resident theater companies. We've offered dance. We've had children's performances. We've had wonderful chamber and classical music performances. And we really feel like we're a bit of a Swiss Army knife for this community, so we like to offer a little bit of everything, hopefully a little bit of something that everyone's looking forward to. We had 81 annual subscribers to our theater series last year. We had 11 music concerts, and we had 23 other performances in 2024. And again, we didn't even have a theater until about September of last year. We were really honored and really proud to open the LaJoy Theater at the Chehalem Cultural Center last September. I know some of you were there for that big opening event. The LaJoy Theater is, of course, named in honor of the LaJoy family. And quick aside, when I started my job 8 years ago, the second person I met was Merlin LaJoy and his wonderful wife, Sandy. And they said to me, hey, we made a donation to name that the LaJoy Theater about 5 years ago, and we'd really like to sit in it someday. Can you build that theater? And let me tell you, I didn't sleep for about a month and a half, but I was really honored in September of last year to open that theater and to have Merlin and Sandy there with their family in the audience with us to make good on that promise that we made them all those years ago. We have some names on our walls that are really important to us that were part of that. The LaJoy Theater, of course, named after Merlin and Sandy and their family. The Try family, Nick and Kathy Try, have been wonderful community members for the years, and they stepped up to put their name in the lobby. And then, of course, the stage itself is named after Jim Halliday. Jim Halliday was a member of our community that we love very much. Jim, many of you may have known Jim. He was the interim director at the Cultural Center when I got hired. Building that theater was his dream, the apple of his eye. He didn't get to see it finished, but every time we're on that stage, we feel like Jim gets to be there right with us, and that's really special for us. We also commissioned a poem by local artist Tracy Myrick. She's a member of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. She goes by the Blood Poet, and it's short, so I'll read it real quick because I think it really sums up what we're all about there at the Cultural Center. So, Embrace by Tracy Myrick. The voices of beauty stand strong and constant, spoken through one man's hands, painted in the words spoken, living in the heartbeat of centuries unfolding, in the vitality of tomorrow's breath. Honor in free expression offers return in the resilient strength of Chehalem, respect being the commodity, freedom emotes the need for dance, creation of story, expression of play, songs born in darkness can shine and bring cultural power as one light. Ancient, brand new, creative, steadfast, culture embracing in all things sacred. We really love that poem, not least of which because it's a constant reminder to us of what our name Chehalem means. Chehalem is a Chinook Wawa word that is of this region. It means the outside place, and though ironically the Chehalem Cultural Center is often an inside place, we like to think it's a place where people get outside and into their community. So we really value that name that y'all gave us. We do a lot of community events at the Cultural Center, and this is just a couple of the things we do that we're proud of. Some of them we put on ourselves, others we help our community put together. We have our 15th annual Yamhill County Martin Luther King Jr. celebration coming up in January. That event is about as old as the Cultural Center. We do a community chalk art party out on the bricks every year as a kickoff to Old Fashioned Festival. This last year, we had our 20th annual Willamette Valley Lavender Festival and Plein Air Art Show. Hundreds of artists come and share their works that they paint in the fields around the area when the lavender's blooming. Last year, in 2024, we sold over $21,000 of paintings in 3 days. That's a lot of art. 60% of that total goes right to the artists. That's a lot of artists who get to make a sale because they participate in that event. And right now we have happening some Hispanic Heritage Month events. We had a really awesome Mercado event a couple weeks ago that I think I saw Clay at. We have a really great Dia de Muertos event coming up on the 30th. And if you're interested to learn more about that, please come check us out. As a part of building the LaJoy Theater, we of course finished some other spaces upstairs. We have a number of amazing galleries at the Cultural Center. And with the addition of our loft gallery upstairs in the hallway, that adds another 2,200 square feet to our gallery space. We now have almost 5,500 square feet of gallery space. That makes the Chehalem Cultural Center right here in Newberg one of the largest public art galleries in the state. And I think that's pretty darn awesome. We, of course, sell work in our galleries all year long, just like we do at the Lavender Festival. And I think that's a really important part of our mission. Artists can't devote their time and energy to art if they can't make a living doing it. So by having galleries like these at the Chehalem Cultural Center, so many artists in our community get to focus on their craft. We have some beautiful spaces. A large part of our mission is making community spaces available through our rentals program. We have any number of weddings, quinceañeras, retirement celebrations, birthdays, and nonprofit fundraisers, school booster club fundraisers that happen there in our beautiful ballroom. And just like we do with our scholarships, we do everything we can to make sure those spaces are accessible and easy to access for our community. And we have a wonderful event sponsorship program where people who want to have an event in our ballroom or any of our spaces, if they can't afford that, there's a way for them to talk to us about that. In 2024, we gave away almost $25,000 in event sponsorship and support for members of our community. I'll take a quick bump here to cheer on some of the amazing financial success of the Chehalem Cultural Center. Now, this is all from 2024. These numbers are put together by a study we did in advance of building the theater, but then also some data supported by Americans for the Arts. We took part in a large national study, and what we learned was that the $1 million or so a year the Chehalem Cultural Center is putting into this community directly by funding programs there spurs another $2.8 million in economic activity in our community. Because people don't just come to the theater, they go out to dinner first, they grab drinks afterwards, and maybe they stop at a shop and buy something along the way. That's $3.8 million of activity in this community that happens every year centered around the Cultural Center. And a number we're very, very proud of is that 85 cents of every dollar we have goes directly into programming. If you look at other nonprofits around the state, around the country, that is a tremendously high number that we're really proud of. A number we are largely able to do because of our amazing partnership and support with the Chehalem Parks and Recreation Department. We wouldn't be here without y'all. We couldn't continue to be here without y'all. We were your idea, and I think it was a darn good one. And we love the partnership that we have. We're really proud of the partnership we have, really proud of the support from the staff that we get. And we just think that it's an amazing place to be. We love taking care of that building. We love getting to be there and put on programs for this amazing community. So that concludes my prepared remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions you got, or just talk about, the World Series or whatever.
Questions, comments?
Well, it's a great presentation, thank you.
Good to see you all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Shane.
How many volunteers did you say you have per year, you think?
It's anywhere between 300 and 500. I will say that it used to be much, much higher. COVID really impacted volunteerism in a big way for us, and I think around the sector, and kind of rebuilding that has been an ongoing project for us, but yeah, about 300.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Thanks for the presentation. Thanks for all you guys
Yeah,
do.
thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I'm going to turn this over to our superintendent. This is Crabtree Park announcement of transition to county parks operations.
And in that case, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kat. So I would say that this is something that we've talked with the board about. Kat wrote this board letter up as a description, also worked with the public information officer from the county to draft a joint statement, which we felt was really important to show that this is not being done in a vacuum, it's not being done unilaterally. Kat, would you like to go ahead and expand on that and talk about what we've been doing?
Thank you. So, yes, as Clay said, we prepared together with county staff a news release that we have scheduled to release in tandem on October 31st that simply explains that the lovely park, Crabtree in Dundee, is changing hands from CPRD to the Yamhill County Parks Department beginning January 1st, and that the county will then begin management of this property, and that CPRD has no plans to close or shutter the park between now and then, that this is simply an announcement. This is taking place. And in support of that, we have been phasing out Crabtree Park on our publications. You have the new, fresh new Discovery Map brochure. We phased it out on that. We'll be removing it from the website after January 1st as well. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, this is poised for release on October 31st together with the county.
Thank you, Kat.
Any questions from the board?
Can we put a line in there that says, "This is a bummer"?
Okay, then next, on C, under action items, we have discussion and updates of the Ewing Young Bridge Project. Again, I will turn it over to the superintendent.
All right, thank you very much. So a couple of items that I wanted to share on this action item. So what we're really trying to do here is make sure that we've heard the board correctly about what the ask is and kind of reshare the alternatives as we understand them. So one of the things that was shared, or a couple of the things that I want to highlight from the board letter that was shared with each of you, was one, the image that is in there is the map that you find in the master plan for Ewing Young Park. And so that's taken directly from there, and wanted to make sure that's included. It's also included as an attachment so that you don't have to squint at it too hard, but could be found directly in that document too. Table 1, which is on the second page of the board letter, shares my and our general understanding of the approaches that are available to us. So the current board direction, as we understand it, is go out and conduct public outreach, then proceed to the county commissioners and ask them to make a text amendment to the zoning ordinance or other materials as required to allow us to go ahead and build this bridge. Because we understand that it's an existing park, parks are an allowed use in that location and in that zoning district that they have. And that our feeling is there's not really a problem with the type of facility that's there to be built. Kind of like Mr. Fredenburg said, it is an accessory use, it's part of running a park. We think that the definition of transportation facility that is used right now with the county is problematic and is overbroad. And so we're hoping that upon that ask, they'll direct their staff to fix that so that it's not constrained in a way that it's not intended to be. And so what the intent was there is under that current direction, then depending on what the commissioner's response is, we will immediately report that to the board as quickly as possible. And if there's a change in what we need to do, or if there's something else, then we would kind of go with there and we would see what we need to do. But the understanding is, and it goes into greater detail on the following page of the board letter, is under the current direction, we would then wait for the county to update that language. When it's ready, we go ahead and submit a new land use application to the county. That goes through smoothly, or if it looks like it's going through smoothly, we go ahead and submit to the city again as well. So then we go through that process and hopefully we're back on track. Now, it hasn't been discussed if there's anything specific that you want staff doing other than returning to this board, depending on the answer that we get, or if there are any things like timelines, like how long is too long, how fast is fast enough, those sorts of things. So if there are expectations in general or specifically, that would be helpful. We also laid out a few other alternatives just for kind of consideration and just so that everyone's on the same page. Also in consideration that we have 2 new board members that haven't been part of these discussions before, so to make sure that all of the board members are on the same page. So listed as alternative 2 is that we would consider reinitiating a LUBA appeal and enforcement process. Now, in consultation with our attorney, it would be expected that to do that, we would have to reapply and get denied. We probably just can't do that based on the standing that that's been too long, too much time has lapsed on that. Now, if there is an opportunity to initiate without going through land use and permitting fees and those things, we would exercise that if that's the pathway that we were asked to explore. Conduct an urban growth boundary amendment. If you recall, the park, the creek that goes through the park, or the stretch of the creek that goes through the park, is coterminous with the city limits boundary and the urban growth boundary. So we can't just do an annexation because we live in Oregon and it's a lovely spot with land use rules. We get the luxury of doing urban growth boundary amendments. Back when I initially started in approximately March and April, we did some research on whether or not we would have to do a standard urban growth boundary amendment, or based on the size of the property, if we could do a more expedited small parcel thing, or if it was exempt completely. And based on that research, it doesn't qualify, it's too big for any of that. I don't remember exactly what the threshold was. Planning Director Friday had a good suggestion. He said, could you just urban growth boundary the part where the trail is to make it qualify? And that was actually a clever suggestion, but unfortunately the trail is a loop that kind of optimizes the site, so it's pretty much the same size. So it didn't actually get us there. Alternative 4 was something that has not been discussed a whole lot, but staff could. Yep.
I'm sorry to interject. With the urban growth boundary amendment, because I know that's popular for people to say that. One of the issues with that, not only is time, but it's also money. It's estimated.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Sorry if I wasn't clear on that,
Yeah.
but I don't recall what estimates we've come up with before. One of the problems is that you end up being on the hook for analyzing all of the available areas that might be appropriate for annexation. And there's a hierarchy that exists, and one of the problems that just at a I would say a relatively unresearched look, if we're looking at AF10, it's probably considered, even though it's AF10 and has residential right next to it, we'd have to make an argument that that is an area we're supposed to annex, or that we're supposed to bring into the urban growth boundary before other areas in the city of Newberg. And the city of Newberg includes urban reserve areas, which in the state's hierarchy are typically the first place you're supposed to look. So, and that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, that the city of Newberg has a bit of an uphill climb on any urban growth boundary amendment that they want to do, is because they have urban reserve areas. And so you end up having to do all of the research to show these are in fact constrained by physical items or development potential or utilities. And in fact, this is the best place to expand to. So you have to do a lot of exercise. And for us, it'd be a lot of research and exercise, i.e. paying someone to do that research, because that would be beyond my skills and would be beyond the skills of staff that we have, unless they're just hiding them from me, which I don't think they are. And we'd be on the hook. There was an individual family that did an urban reserve area application with the city of Newberg a couple of years ago, and that research to go through there, I believe, ran them over $50,000 to do that, and they were unsuccessful.
And that's not even factoring in potential litigation, 1,000
That's
Friends
not
of
even a part of it.
Oregon. So that option could be $200,000-$300,000 litigation, 2 to 3 years.
Things can always
5
have hurdles
years.
you don't expect.
Right.
And so it's not one, if it were just an annexation, it would be very reasonable, and it would probably not be that hard. But because it's not, it doesn't seem like a viable pathway.
Okay, thank you.
So alternative 4, I wanted to bring up, I don't know that there's an answer for this one, but if the board wanted to, this would be something that, I don't even know how we do that. I just wanted to see if there was an appetite for exploring it in case if there is a a tactic that doesn't meet or trigger a transportation facility, we could talk to the county about what that is, but I don't think they would know either. They'd be like, well, why don't you go out and do the research and come back to us? But looking at their definition, it is comprehensive, broad enough that it seems to, it kind of uses the word improvements, and almost anything's an improvement once you build it. And inherently, to get across there, you kind of need to build something to do it, to get people across that waterway. So I don't know if that truly seems viable, but I wanted to put it out there if the board wants us to start exploring, smaller tactics. And then the last one was abandoning the project. Any policy alternative, you need to look at either the kind of the do nothing option, and abandoning the project would be the do nothing option in this case. I don't think that's desired. I put it there just for disclosure purposes. The other thing that's in here is, with Casey's help, we put together a timeline to give folks an idea of kind of all the steps that we've been working on. So this hasn't been an easy to even get to this stage. And I think the board knows that, but kind of particularly for the newer board members, wanted to make sure folks know what the road has been to get here. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions to the extent that I can, or the board can simply deliberate and tell us if there's any changes in its opinion. But I would suggest to speak amongst yourselves and let staff know what you think.
One question I had, just because I am a little bit new to this, what is an appropriate amount of time to expect for the county to respond to a legislative amendment like that?
I would say that the county, the commissioners can make a decision that evening. They may even table it to kind of come up with some facts, consult with their staff, and maybe in the next meeting or within a month, kind of continue it to that and get us a decision, because I don't think it needs to be done now. It becomes the appetite of this board on how long we would expect the county staff to complete that in, and we might ask that they let us know, if directed, what a reasonable expectation of time would be. Every planning department's got a workload. My understanding is that they had, at some point, worked on language that could be an alternative that wasn't palatable at the time, that even took that to the planning commission. So it sounds like they could be relatively prepared with something that addresses some of this issue. So that would be one approach. We could also make suggestions when we propose a change that could help move that along, and they could share that with staff. But exact days, it could be hard. Now, if they're going to do an ordinance adoption, they do have to do a first and second reading. They have to get that on the agenda. They have to do some things. So I would say 60 days would still be pretty rapid from the date they get direction.
Okay. And the public outreach that's discussed in alternative one is scheduled for November?
Great question. Thank you for not letting me skip that. In November, and it's in the superintendent report, we have open houses planned. This is the first time the board has heard about it. It's in this packet. We have a press release ready tomorrow, unless the board tells us they hate this idea so much. But our hope is to do a public open house to hit multiple issue areas. Our feeling has been that there is interest and need to do public outreach and engagement on multiple important topics that we have that are time sensitive. And if we do that piecemeal, we're just never going to get it done. And when we do, the fatigue of the public to attend and give good input is going to be limited. So our hope is to, on November 19th, do an in-person public open house that would be for the district. And then on November 20th, to do a virtual public open house. So what we would do is basically make a way of kind of greeting people, welcoming them to the space, and there would be multiple topics going on. It would be open house format, so it's drop in, leave when you're ready, and we would talk about existing parks and programs that could be fed largely and prompted by what we learned from our community input survey that's active until later this month. We would have a breakout room for discussions related specifically to Ewing Young Park, also to the Rennie Field project, also for places for bikes. And so we want to do those because those are things that we haven't done in a robust way that's been open to everyone. For example, the places for bikes, we've talked to people that we know are interested advocates, but we haven't really talked to the public at large about, when we talk about what bike needs we have for the entire community, what are those? Is it mostly youth? Is it in town? Is it out of town? Is it big high quality place, or could it be multiple sites? And so that would be one example. For Ewing Young Park, we had talked about and generally committed to doing some outreach before we return to the county commissioners, and they said they would really like to hear from those residents that border the park. There's only about, Casey, how many houses did we say are actually adjacent to the park itself?
I think there's like 25 or
Well,
40.
I think
That are just adjacent to the
that are
park.
just adjacent to the park, was it between 8 and 16 or something like that?
It's like,
Oh, yeah. There's,
On the county side?
yeah, 8.
Yeah. So we believe it was 8 that actually have contact with that. Now, in a letter that I reviewed from a resident there, I believe they talked about 27 homeowners, and I think they were referring to the neighborhood. So they don't actually, or don't share a boundary. So there's slightly different neighborhood issues. But for this open house, we would do additional mailings to specifically invite those individuals. And we would do similar mailings for areas around Rennie Field and similar outreach emails or addresses, whatever we have, for the bicycling community or for others that have expressed interest in finding a place for bikes. So those are the things we want to do, is kind of some enhanced outreach to try and encourage people to participate in these conversations. The other thing I would add from a community engagement standpoint is one big open house, you're going to get, hopefully, way more people that are middle of the road, that are not just interested in just one topic. Even though we need information on those topics, it would be great to have general public members weigh in on those topics, should they choose to. So, Director McMaster, I think you had a question.
well, does anyone else have any other discussion or
Yeah.
questions?
I'll get going here. Okay, so this plan was adopted by the board previously, and there are 5 steps, which you outline here very well. We're still on step 1, and there's reasons why we're still on step 1. There's been elections, lack of superintendent for a while, change in our board, also change in the Board of Commissioners with elections, with both. So there has been delay. I'd say the delay is something that I haven't been happy with necessarily, but it's also something that's been, for the most part, unavoidable. I don't think that, when we were without a superintendent, for example, doing step 1, which is what we're now scheduling, thank God, was possible. All that is to say, this is slow. It's a slow process. Litigation is also a slow process, and it's one that comes with a lot of risk. This is a process that is something that can be developed amicably between all sides. And honestly, it's probably a good way to template out how we can look into these sort of projects where you have neighbors of parks with concerns. I think a lot of what's occurred in this county in the last few years is there's been a lack of communication and getting people on board. It's been a little more pushy, a little more, I'll get my attorney, you get your attorney, and we just have to get out of that mentality. It doesn't work. It really never does. And even when it works, it doesn't work, because then there's the next election, and then there's the next attorney, and there's another decision that runs counter to that. So we need to depoliticize these kinds of things. We need to litigate these kinds of things. And I believe this plan can do that. There's a couple other steps that are later in this plan after the community outreach, the code amendment. One of the other things is just rezoning this to parkland, which is probably a best practice, something that our district probably should be doing with a lot of these pieces of land where they're zoned correctly for the use that we intend to use them for. AF10, in this case, is a zoning that's just simply not correct for this piece of land. It can't be farmed. It's landlocked. So it's not a farm use unless you could farm it with helicopters or airplanes or something. So we need to zone things correctly, and I think that can potentially be a way to kind of avoid some of these issues in the future potentially. With cities, I know we also had a similar zoning conversation even with Dundee on Sander Park. And that was another project that took way too long. But there was a way we were able to come together with that council and this board and that staff and our staff and move things forward. And so I'm eager to get this going. I think it's a long time coming, but let's do our part by starting with step one before we get mad or point fingers or blame anyone else. Let's do what we need to do, and then see what happens.
Yeah, I think we need to most certainly meet with the people who live directly that are connected with this part. And look, we're gonna build this bridge, and we've already voted on that. We know that we're gonna move forward. It's just a matter of how are we gonna get there. And I think what we're gonna have to do is find a palatable thing that will work for them, so that whether that be a tree-lined fence, whether that be some kind of a fence, we need to have some kind of separation if that's what they need in order to make this palatable. I don't know if we're gonna have to worry about security. I know that, if we have a bridge someday that goes across Ewing Young, I believe that it unfortunately, stuff happens when you can't see. So, there's no grocery stores or anything right there, so it's not likely that we'll probably have homeless move in there, but it's something that we're gonna have to deal with. So, but I think that we should definitely have a conversation directly with the people who actually live right next to that. They're the most important voices, I think, that we're gonna hear from. And one more thing. I do think that we're gonna have to look at what the cost of this bridge is. If this bridge, we were told it was gonna be 200, and I'm just roughing 268,000, somewhere in that ballpark. If this thing comes out at $500,000, I don't know that it's worth it to build a bridge. Here's the thing, if we were talking about a piece of property that was a flat piece of property and you could get all these people on it and we would have so many uses, it might make sense. But when we start talking about $500,000, that's only one piece of it. There is so much more involved than the $500,000 bridge. So I think cost is gonna be a factor.
Okay, I think it's really important that we talk to the neighbors. I do. I think that's, a lot of these land use issues, they get skipped, or they didn't get their flyer or whatever. I think that it's the 23rd of October right now, and we're looking at November 5th. I didn't know when these letters or flyers or whatever are gonna go out. I wanna make sure these people have the time to be notified that this is gonna happen. Matt, I know, worked with our past attorney that had left the firm that we're working with now on moving this forward, and I have to agree with him that the superintendent leaving and those problems happening, it slowed this process down. I get that, but I also understand that the general public who owns the property, all of the folks in our district within the city of Newberg, within the city of Dundee, and within the county that are within our district want to be able to access the property that they own. And I think that's really important. And it's also important for the board to look at all the neighbors that abut the park right now. The trail that is in the park currently on our 40-plus acres, there's many homes, probably up to 30 homes that are just adjacent to the trail right now. So we need to keep that in mind, that we're already impacting, people are saying the neighborhood, but I can tell you in the almost 40 years that I was working for the district, and Ewing Young was one of the parks that I worked at, I never got a complaint. If anything, we had folks throw stuff over their fence into the park, and I had to talk to them. So really, the park has been really loved by our community, and I know this adoption of of getting folks over on the other side would be also something that's important. And I also think that, we need to work with the county to a point. I think that we're both, here and elected by our taxpayers to represent them and talk with them and see if there's a way to work this forward without going to any litigation. The last thing that I want to have happen has to have to jump back on LUBA without looking at every alternative possible to make this work. I think that's really important for us. I would assume it's important for the county. And we want to be able to provide parks and recreation to our county residents. And so hopefully our superintendent can work with them on that. The cost of the bridge, I was looking into that a little bit. And I think that some of the bridge work can be done in-house to a point as far as getting ready for any kind of concrete work on stabilization of the, whatever it is. So I think some of it, like we've done in our playgrounds, like we've done in a lot of things, we can help cut costs, but not saying, hey, we're gonna get an engineering firm, they're gonna put it in, we're gonna buy this and it's gonna be crazy money. I think there's a way we can look at that, and I think that there's some folks out there that are willing to donate to make this happen, because they see that it is an important recreational amenity for the folks that live here. So with that said, I would like to recommend, or first I'd like to ask our superintendent which direction he thinks that we should go on this, using your professional knowledge of planning and background.
So if we can stay out of land use, out of LUBA, I think everyone is gonna be happier. We can find something that's amicable, but I think that we also need to be clear, because it sounds like this board is willing to go there if the county says, yeah, that sounds like that's too bad for you guys, we don't expect you to build a bridge. Because it is our property and we feel that we're in the right, and while we can understand a tricky LUBA determination and interpretation that they're stuck with, we expect them to fix that. And they have had time to do so since then and chosen not to. But if we can help give them a nudge and let them know that it's important and that they take us seriously and prioritize it, then, and both parties get to stay out of Land Use Board of Appeals, I think there's a real benefit to both parties there. So, but like I said, I would be willing to come back, and my anticipation from what I hear from this board is that there may be an appetite to go to the Land Use Board of Appeals if they decline to do so, or if we don't feel that it's a sincere direction for the staff to do so.
I think
So
you're right. I
getting-
think you're right in stating that, but we want to see every alternative prior to that.
Right.
At least I do. I don't know about the rest of the
Sure.
board, but at least I
And-
do.
yeah.
Before we have to jump into that.
And, right, and I will apologize that it has taken this long since getting here. I would have loved to have completed this outreach over the summer, but have been very pleased with some of the progress we've made in other places. We've been able to hustle up. Sanders State is cranking along, and we have some other things that have been going well for us. But it is overdue for this outreach to happen, and it gives us an opportunity to have something like a big arms open style open house, but to do this kind of enhanced outreach and communication with those neighbors who could be impacted. So they will be getting mailers. Based on the comments that I'm hearing, the mailings that they get will invite them to the open house. They'll invite them to do direct consultation with staff, or we'll meet with them one-on-one. Or if they invite us to a homeowners association meeting, or however they choose, we'll be happy to do that. And they'll also be notified of anything additional that we plan on doing to prepare ourselves for moving forward. So,
The only other thing that I want to state, and if you disagree with me, let us know, board, is that I want to move this along. We're looking at 2018. This is a Sanders Park Phase 2 situation where it's taken so long to get here. So I would like to move this along. And I'm not saying quickly to where we don't do our due diligence, but move it along.
I wonder if you would be willing to actually go and actually talk to some of these adjacent landowners, and I would be happy to go with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we can speed that along, and we can just let them know we are going to build this. What can we do to make this palatable? So
And hopefully we'll see how many come to the meeting that he's setting up. And-
I would
and then
almost like to do it first, go see these people first prior, and let them know there will be a place for the public as well.
But then maybe we should get together with the superintendent and talk to him.
Okay, that sounds good.
if the two of you and the board is comfortable with you two being the leads for that additional outreach, that would be welcome.
Okay.
I'm happy to have extra hands on deck, because I can't be everywhere at once, but if I have extra people that are willing to do some visits or door knocks or anything like that, that is fine.
Still want to meet with you first, if we can, with him, to make sure our approach
Yeah,
is right.
well, then we're in sync. That would
I
be-
do know that I've had a conversation with with a county commissioner, and this county commissioner told me that it's imperative to him. He is a no-go on moving forward if we do not actually go out and talk to these guys, because we don't want to have the same problem that happened on previous projects.
Okay, any other discussion here?
I had a few thoughts, if it's okay. I'll try not to take too long, just because I want to understand a few things. And it sounds like we're all on the same page in terms of public outreach. That is very crucial for me as well. Obviously, talk to the adjacent landowners, extremely important. And then I think, reaching out to the landowners in the adjacent property that's already accessible, the area that's accessible right now. So when you send out the mailers, I'm assuming you're already going to reach out to all of Ewing area for the open house, right?
My idea was to do the extra mailings directly to the county adjacent neighbors.
Okay.
Because they're the ones that because they'd be related to the county land use
Sure.
action.
Need 500 feet within.
Yeah, so that's a mailing that has to happen during land use applications
Sure.
anyway. But we already have that list. Happy to do it again. We can extend that a little further if we want to, add some addresses if we think it's important to include the entire neighborhood, which is what I was leaning towards.
Okay.
So, because previously, the communications that I reviewed came from, I think, the president or an officer from the homeowners association. So I was going to try and capture the homeowners association folks. So, because I don't know exactly who had expressed opinions previously.
Because philosophically, for me, I'm not a big fan of let's notify the bare minimum in the shortest amount of time legally allowed to give the least amount of time possible for people to engage civically. Obviously, I'm not saying we have to do something too extravagant.
And we're not doing that, just
Sure,
to be clear.
which
We're
I'm
doing
very
nothing
glad
we're
of.
required to do, we're going over and above.
Yes, and I appreciate that. Regarding talking to the county and stuff, I'm very sympathetic to the fact that the last 2 years since the LUBA thing was dropped, with the turnover and the superintendent, that all makes sense. So, I don't know, I think it seems like the best course of action would be, I don't know if we need a motion, but we can talk about asking Clay to then go to the county commissioners, make a public comment, or ask to be agendized to present what we would like to be able to work with them.
I think that would be a good idea, but I think before we do that, I want to have a conversation with some of these landowners so that we have something to talk
Sure.
about.
We can schedule, I mean, I would leave that up to the schedule, but I don't want to leave tonight and just say, we'll talk about talking to the county after we've talked. We can schedule both. Does that make sense? Like you schedule talking to the people first, but we can also schedule talking to the county tonight, so to speak.
I think we can leave that up to the superintendent.
Okay.
That's my opinion,
Sure.
because I think that's the track he's going to take.
That's right.
Okay.
That's my understanding of the direction that I have, that the board has already authorized me to go forward and make contact with the county commissioners, which would be asking to be added to their agenda.
Okay.
Now that we have those open houses in the meeting, and that we're going to put out those mailers, and that coordinating with directors McMaster and Fields, that's fine. That's all the outreach, and that can happen. I mean, what I will probably do is in the next week or so, reach out to planning director Friday and say, hey, would you please see if you can get us on the agenda for X date in the future? We expect our outreach to be done by then.
Okay.
And I'll just stay in touch with them through that. That's my expectation. But with the idea of completing all these things that I'm hearing and that we're planning for this outreach activity.
Okay.
All right, and any other questions, comments? Okay. Then we're going to move on to our Citizen Advisory Committee's policy clarification discussion. Mr. Superintendent.
This would be another one that I would say
Or
is
Kat.
mostly with Kat. Although what I would say is this was something that we discussed kind of on our senior leadership folks and the folks that are staff that go to a lot of these various committee meetings. And we were getting in situations where, depending on the committee, there were different issues at play on what they were experiencing, frustrations for the committee members, asking ourselves what the direction really was, and how would these committee members know when it's mission complete? And how would staff know when it's mission complete to be able to work with these committee members? So what we were hoping to do is check in with the board, make sure that we understand where they are, and either clarify, update, or do whatever with these committee members and make sure they're still doing the things, or these committees, to make sure they're still doing what we want them to do, and that they have clear marching orders. Because one of the things is, from a staff perspective, is that committees are one of the more labor-intensive tools in our toolbox for getting input. They're great because they're valuable and they do really good work. And our committees have done good things, each one of them. But we shouldn't be having committees just to have committees. That's a lot of work if it doesn't have clear direction and value. And there are other tools in our toolbox other than committees. We can have focus groups. We can have volunteers. We can have different approaches to engaging with people. But we are currently getting value and have gotten value from these CACs. And so I want to respect that. But if they've done a great job and they've finished their job, we should celebrate that and tell them thank you. But we should also be at liberty, if they're ad hoc committees, if that's the intent of the board, to sunset those committees and tell them that it's mission complete and they did a great job. If they still have more work to do, we need to make sure we're clear about what that work is, or at least that it's clear to staff and it's clear to the CAC. So with that, I hope I didn't steal too much thunder. That was a lot more talking than I intended. Sorry, Kat.
No, thank you. Yeah, that does aptly sum up what we wanted to bring to you today. It's a really kind of a happy problem to have. We have 3 really busy, dedicated, effective committees, citizen advisory committees in pickleball and trails and the clubhouse development. And they are exactly midway through their terms, their scheduled terms. They signed up for 2 years. But their direction, their entire purpose is simply stated to give recommendations to the board. So these 2 committees, as you know, 2 out of the 3 already have development projects that are on the ground, that are happening. And a 3rd one is the Trails has many projects within existing parks also happening. So we just wanted direction, we wanted clarity from the board, and we think the committees deserve it too. To know, do you expect them to continue how do you gauge when they've completed their purpose, and where do we go from here? Thank you.
And I would add, we do have a few committee members here in the crowd, so if you wanted to take public comments from them alongside this action item, that's your prerogative to do so.
Comments?
Well, I'm not sure where this is coming from, honestly. I mean, I'm trying to understand. I mean, here's the thing, it is true that we've got a golf course committee and they're working on building a golf course, but really they're doing so much more than that. These people are trying to help us have the best experience possible, and they're gonna bring things to us that we're not gonna see, and I think that's gonna be the same with our Trails Committee and our pickleball committees, unless there's something that I'm not seeing here.
I could chime in a little bit. In particular, one comment that I noted from the Trails Committee is they didn't really know what the purpose was. So I think that's kind of the point is, and I would defer to the 3 of you who were already on the board previously, is what was your intention with these committees? Like, what did you, or, you know, with the Trails Committee in particular, like Matt, you were the previous liaison, like what did you see as the vision? Like, what was the goal, and what can we kind of clarify?
That's good. Let's take them one by one because
Sure.
they're so very different.
Yeah.
The Heritage Trails Committee was in place before I was on the board, so I don't know. Do we know when that started? What year?
Right, so they were all October 2024.
No, the original,
Oh, the original
like
iteration,
the
that was
very,
3
very
years
beginning.
before that, 2021.
Okay, so it hadn't been in place
It
very
began in
long.
2021, right? They signed up for 3-year terms.
Okay.
And then when it was reiterated at the end of that, the board changed all committee terms except for the budget committee to
Right.
2 years.
Okay. So the Heritage Trail Committee, for the time that I was on it, is dedicated not just to one park, but literally every park that has a trail and every kind of trail, including the paddle launch, so water-related activities. And as you know, our Heritage Trail Plan is, what is it, something like 70 miles of interconnected trails throughout the district. So their focus has been Bob and Crystal Riley Park, because that's probably the it's the largest trail system we've had, and it didn't have signs. It didn't have up-to-date mapping. It didn't have a lot of the things that you'd kind of need for a park that size. So that was considered probably the number one project for the committee to work on. So when I left, we had just kind of finished most of the mapping, a trail sign package, plans to do some footing, some winterization. And then I think that's all, Brian, if I'm correct, that's all sort of now occurring or has completed. Is that correct?
It's in the process.
Yeah. And then part of that sign package too was to create uniformity throughout all the trail systems that we have. So we started kind of a smaller, similar system at Ewing Young. And then maybe the hope is to have a uniform system with signs, maps, similar kind of reader boards in all of our parks and all of our trail systems. Cool. So with that said, the Trails Committee, if you're looking at what's their mission, it's the broadest of all three.
Right.
Because we're still in the process of building a Newberg Dundee bypass trail. There's still a number of other trail systems. Should we expand Ewing Young, that will be another trail system that will expand. There's other connections, potentially even at the Friends Park with the land that we purchased there. So that would be my perspective on the Chehalem Heritage Trails Committee. Yeah.
I guess my question from a staff side is, what is the board expecting from them? So again, committees are labor intensive. They have to follow public meeting laws.
Yep.
They have to meet and behave in certain ways. So the Trails Committee is a good example. They've been very engaged, very active, put in hours, and are doing good active work. And a committee form is cumbersome to doing active work, to doing on-site work, to communicating with one another. It gets in the way. So, and then I would ask, if a citizen advisory committee, the reason they're a committee and the reason they have to have public meetings is because they're appointed by the board to do things for the board and then will report to the board. So it's that relationship to the board. So being clear about what is the board getting with respect, or what is the board expecting with respect to parks and trails and Heritage Trail Plan and Bob and Crystal Riley. And so is there still that relationship, or are they really being asked to work with staff? If they're being asked to work primarily with staff and then staff reports back, that's really more like either a volunteer group or a focus group or something like that. Having a focus group as part of like a capital project is a pretty common form of outreach. You get people that are interested stakeholders or technical experts or have some specific thing they're bringing to the table. And then when that project gets kind of realized, then you say mission complete. Thank you so much, everybody. We couldn't have done it without you. So for staff and particularly the Trails Committee, because it's so broad, I would ask, is there a deliverable expected for the board? Or is there a specific something where we know it's done? Or are we establishing a standing committee where we will always have a Trails Committee and it will just be a standing committee? And that's something that's a staff expectations thing. So, and I don't want to pick on the Trails Committee, it was just the first one. And that's one of the ones where they've got a strong relationship with staff. And I would want to highlight, they have been extremely valuable to staff, and they've been tangibly valuable. Am I correct, Brian?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So and they're getting really good stuff done. But that committee structure can get in the way. But at the same time, it's scary to the idea of losing a committee status because you feel like you don't have the ear of your electeds. So there's a struggle there. And again, that broad mandate is the thing.
Well, I'm going to throw something else out here that could be considered controversial. I hope it's not. But part of the goal or the reason for a committee that's an ad hoc committee or a committee under the board is it's not to be really a political animal. It's supposed to be, like you said, they work with staff, they report to the board, provide recommendations, right? But it's not supposed to be its own unit that's politicizing or potentially fighting with the board or creating factions within. So I think that's one advantage of having something that is under public meeting law, that is transparent, that does follow the process. Of course, it's frustrating, I think, at some and sometimes it's frustrating for the committee members because, you know, they have quorum rules, they have public meeting law rules that they have to comply with that might hinder some of the volunteer activity. So I see that point. I also see the point with staff. You guys are like, do we need to be here at 7 at night, you know, going over this? But I think there's reasons why that system is in place and why the alternative system, which would basically be probably outside volunteer groups, could potentially work against some of the positives that you have with the committee, which is, it's not a politically motivated group, or it's not supposed to be, so.
You have comments? You were on the committee, by the way.
Yeah, you know, I'd have a lot of comments. No, I think it's hard. I think it's difficult because I do think the Trails Committee is a little different than the other two committees. It does feel like it's ongoing. So I do agree with a lot of what Matt said about the Trails Committee specifically, and that there are, you know, projects that the Trails Committee can be working on, you know, for years to come, because the signage projects, things like that are awesome. You know, you look at the Golf Committee and the Pickleball Committee, you know, I don't know how beneficial it is for the Pickleball Committee to continue meeting week after week while this Jakewith project's going on, when the Jakewith project is going to complete. You know, the district has already proved they're willing to invest in pickleball in our community, and they're taking the steps to potentially invest in golf in our community, a new clubhouse, all of that. So I don't know. I think that I would almost suggest we have two separate conversations with those two committees and the Trails Committee as well, and make sure that that stays separate, because I do think, and this is directly from being on a committee for the last 5 years or previous to being in this position, that without a goal, without a deliverable goal, those committees do not operate efficiently and effectively, or they have the opportunity to go a different direction. And also, it does take a ton of, that is unfair to staff and also some of the volunteers on the committee. So I do think depending on what we decide, if we do decide we want to dissolve committees after they have reached their intended goal, if we don't decide to do that, we need to make sure that the committees that are still working have a goal to work towards, for everyone's sake.
Okay, one of the things that I've seen, because I've been on several of the committees, and I have to say, when, you know, in the first 40 years or whatever I was here, I think we had the pool committee to raise the, you know, money for the bond and get that passed, and that was it. We really have not had a lot of committees in this district, and then they all of a sudden came up. But one of the frustrations of sitting in some of these committee meetings I've seen is the public meeting laws. I mean, it's hard enough for our board to understand some of the public meeting laws now, versus a committee having to figure out these laws, and then they're emailing back and forth, and all of a sudden there's a quorum, and it's illegal, and I don't think that they should have to deal with that, and that frustration. And the other thing that that was frustrating for me to a point is they'd have meetings, we'd show up, there's not a quorum, staff is here, I'm here taking my time off to come here to do that, to support them. Can't have the meeting legally. We've basically just paid staff to be here and for nothing that could happen. And that, again, is costing the taxpayers money at that point. And I don't know if some of the committees understand that or have seen that. And then a lot of the committees were thinking, well, we have to do this monthly. That is not the case, and I try to tell them that you can meet quarterly. I mean, you don't have to meet monthly. And so that's important for folks to know that, and we could set that up. But I agree that on a lot of these committees, goals were not set. And why are we here? What are we doing? Frustrations. The first trail committee, those people just did not want to come back because they didn't have clear direction. And that clear direction needs to take place with all the committees, if we're going to have committees at all. And I think the ad hoc situation, or, you know, folks that want to help on a volunteer basis and talk to you know, Brian, we want to do some trail work, we want to help build your playground, or those type of things, it's going to be a lot easier for the public, in my opinion, than asking these people, or my experience through the years, and asking these people that attend these meetings and so on and so forth, meet these rules. But, you know, with all that said, does the committee, the trail committee is here. Do you have any comments?
Yeah.
Go to, just so
Yeah, if
people
you
on
just
Zoom, if
speak your
anyone's there,
name
and the record.
That'd be great.
Lauren Pfeiffer. So Dennis and I are here from the Trails Committee, and a couple things. I mean, I agree with a lot that's been said, with the exception of our current Trail Committee. We definitely had and know the purpose. I think we wanted to make sure that, I think now that we've done a lot of work at Crystal Riley on the maps and the signage and handed it over to Brian and team and are almost finished with that, we're looking for what is the next priority. There's plenty of purpose if you think about all the work that's going on in trails in this district, right? So I think it's more just asking the board or staff or whatever, what is the next priority, and have a list of priorities. It is difficult to work within the public meeting laws because we can't get anything done for an hour a month. It's next to impossible. So especially with the trail committee, with all the work that is available to be done, right? So I think if we continue with the committee, more education, more understanding of what we can and can't do, and maybe some more frequent meetings even on the trail committee, maybe not the whole committee, but parts of the committee, subcommittees within the trail committee, something like that. But I did want to clarify that it's not that we don't understand what we can help with, because there's certainly a lot of things that we can help with. And I do think that, I agree with everything that Clay said. And I think that the structure of the committee does provide just that structure, and it everyone understands that it's their responsibility to show up and contribute, and it's consistent because we have the same 7 people, and we are here to report out to the board, and we're here to report to our board liaison and get that input and work with staff. So I just wanted to clarify that it's not that we don't, Dennis can come up here and chime in, but it's not that we don't understand what our purpose is. It's just, okay, we're ready for our next priority. Thanks.
Dennis, would you like to?
I'll try to be brief. Thank you, Chair and Directors. It's been an honor working on the committee. When I first applied, I was really intrigued on what this structure was going to be like. I thought I would be assisting the board with policies on what they're doing with their trail program. And I soon realized it really wasn't that, and it was more about doing a project and working with staff. And the priority need at that time, everyone came to realize was, Riley Park really needs a coherent map and some better trail signage within the park. So we were able to concentrate on that. Almost impossible to work within the public meeting laws for the kind of work that we were doing. Getting together ad hoc, going out, walking on the trails with a group of people and kind of making some decisions of what we should recommend to Brian. I think the idea that we're called this advisory committee to the board, this is the second time our group has actually reported to the board, because we had nothing to really report to you guys. I mean, we had a lot to discuss with staff, but really nothing to really have interactions with you on. I think all of us that applied and were selected to be on the committee would love to work with the board and do some more heavy lifting with the trail program. But as it exists today, I really don't think we need to have this cachet of that we're an advisory committee and have to abide by these public meeting laws. I think we could very easily do it as an ad hoc or a volunteer group, as long as we still knew we had the same kind of priority access to Brian and the staff. But frankly, once we're done Riley, nothing really else has trickled up that we want to, would love to really jump in on. We all love Ewing Young, and our committee is 100% behind the bridge and the expansion of the park. And is there anything we can do as a citizen group to assist with that? We'd be more than happy to do that. I know I've had a lot of experience with trails and working with the public. I oversaw the Banks of Vernonia State Trail when it was being established. I was also overseeing the Salmonberry Trail when it's still being established. And there's always NIMBY issues. It's going to happen. And I can tell you from firsthand information, people that absolutely hated the Banks of Vernonia Trail, that had property adjacent to the trail, are now some of its biggest proponents. That initially they asked us to fence all that property along adjacent to the trail. A couple years later, we see them cutting and putting gates in on the fences because they wanted to access the trail. They're concerned about property values going down, whereas almost every national study that's been done is that people's residential properties that are adjacent to trails go up in value. So I really think the idea of a public open house and inviting all those folks to come, people that are proponents, people that have already lived next to the park and have firsthand information about what that's like, for them to interact with property owners that do not have that experience is a great thing. If you just go knock on a door to your neighbor that's adjacent to the park, they're going to say, no, I hate it, I don't want anything to do with it. And you're going to get that one after the other. So I'm not sure how appropriate that is, as opposed to bringing them in so they can hear from their whole community about how the rest of the community feels about the trail and whether or not they can be supportive of it. So that's probably going a little bit beyond what we're talking about now. But if there's any questions at all about, advisory committee yes, advisory committee no, we just have some work to do. We're going to get it done, and we're going to complete at least Riley, and then scratch our heads probably to figure out what's our next project.
Thank you.
Well, you've done a great job with what you guys have done and the time that you've been there, and thank you so much for your service.
Well, I really want to thank Lauren and as well as Bob, who have really done the yeoman's work on pulling that together.
You might want to discuss this meeting with your committee.
Yeah,
Put a topic on your agenda
yeah.
on where you want to head to, because we want it to be worthwhile for you folks too.
Yeah, we talked a little bit at the last meeting, and we put it on our agenda for the next meeting to continue the discussion of, what are our needs. And we're not going to be offended by saying there's no longer this advisory committee that we've applied and was accepted to be on and participate in. And we can think of another name for the committee. But I think you're always going to have folks that are going to want to help you with their trails because they love trails. And there's a huge enthusiastic group out there that want to help with your trails.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Could I chime in some discussion, just throwing some thoughts out?
There.
First of all, I totally agree with
Just microphone.
this gentleman. I totally agree with what this gentleman said about gathering the adjacent landowner or homeowners together in one setting as opposed to going around knocking on doors. And my recommendation would be, and I'm an adjacent homeowner, is that you have a meeting or call a meeting, reserve a room at the cultural center, get the word out, and not just invite people from my homeowner association, but there's other people in next door residences in Glen Hollow, I think, that actually use the trails in Ewing Young Park and that would be equally interested in having a discussion about it. So don't just include the Hidden Meadows homeowners, but go a little bit beyond that.
Okay, thank you. Brandon?
On the topic of the committees, because I wanted to kind of think out loud here and get some input. One thing I'd like to be able to honor the remaining term, at least for the people who are on the committees. I'm not sure it would be very healthy to just say, we're kicking you out. They were signed up, they were appointed. So I think I would like to give all three committees the homework of come up with a meeting by the end of the year and come up with your decision. Do you want to be a committee? If you're a Citizens Advisory Committee, what do you think you want to advise the board on? What projects, policies, etc. Make it clear on what you think you can provide, because we can, throw things at you all day, but you guys are the ones that are passionate about these particular committees. And if you can present something that makes sense, then in my opinion, that's a way to continue committees in a healthy way. And then you can also debate with, well, we want to continue helping, but some of these, these email issues and the public meeting laws, and maybe we could transition into a volunteer group where you come up with who you think is a good person for XYZ, and then you can talk to Clay and say, we want to be a volunteer group. What's the best way to do about that? And then we could talk about it up here. But that's just my personal opinion. Give them some input, come back to us and say, this is what we prefer. Especially the two groups, golf and pickleball, they haven't been meeting lately, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of in a little bit of a limbo.
Yeah, I really like that idea, Brandon, of leading up to the groups, because I do not like the idea of just dismissing the committees. If we've seen they have reached the arbitrary goals that we have. So I do like that idea. And Pickleball Committee is meeting on Monday.
Okay.
And that's on the agenda to discuss. So I think it's a great idea.
Part of the thing that I think needs to be with the discussion on whether you want to be a committee versus a volunteer group is understanding what the rules are. Because, I even read through CPRD's own policy, and you guys aren't really supposed to talk to staff to some extent. You're supposed to talk to Clay first, and how do you decide what you can, Brian's been working with you guys, and that's awesome, but I don't want the organization to get in trouble, ethically speaking, if somebody files for some sort of, they want to get some public records and they find something's going on just because we didn't properly give the information to the committees, I think that's where I'm at. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll throw in a couple more thoughts. So part of the committee's work are the things that they believe that they see within their specialty that they want to address. But really, we're the board, and we need to be giving them the guardrails and the mission and the goal. So with the clubhouse committee, they've met one of their goals. There could be more, but that's probably something that we need to decide. So the clubhouse committee, it's now, we've funded and went forward with the study. There may be other issues with the golf course. There's also the third 9. There's other things that we could have them within their field of specialty address. But I do think that we can't abdicate our responsibility as a board to give these committees what it is we want from them. I mean, I have a bunch of ideas for the Trails Committee, things that I think that they could do. Trail designs and some park designs, even at Friends Park, where we have some expansion there. Trail design potentially at the Ewing Young, the future 10 acres, which will be a someday plan. How we're going to manage the Newberg Dundee bypass trail, which we have a section that's going in. Even something as simple as the paths around Rennie Field and how those connect. So there's a lot that we can do, but I do think the board, we need to be careful where we just say, hey, do you guys want to do this? Do you want
Sure.
These committees, we set them up. And I think there was a learning curve, I guess, with the committees. when I was elected, because I think there was a lot of confusion on the committees. There were no rules, there was no goal, there were no guardrails, there was no vision. So we need to continue to provide that. And if that means that we have this on our agenda, what do we want from the golf committee? Then we should do that. Obviously, the golf committee right now, maybe they don't need to meet for 4 or 5 months, but maybe we get an update with the study and we're talking about business planning. And then there's some other thoughts that the committee could bring forward, something that we want from them. Okay. The pickleball committee, for example, right now it's winter. Everyone's playing in Tualatin at the new indoor facility. It's like, what's the big deal? But someday when this construction's done, let's say January 1st, which it won't be, but there's going to be a lot of other things for them to deal with. There will be access to the courts. Oh, are we walking in mud, getting mud on the courts? The borders, the sound barriers, all these things that pickleball people who know pickleball are going to be able to provide us with input on. And that's the point of the committee. They're experts. They know things that we don't know. We don't have the time to know. We don't have the information. So I think the board, we need to step up on our side and make it more clear what we need.
Sure.
One last thing, I just want to make sure that we as a board are not involved with what the staff should be doing on any of these items. The staff's paid to do a certain job, and we don't want to get into that. So our job is policy, and we just always need to remember that too. I don't disagree with what you said. You had a lot of good points, but I want to make sure that we use the staff and the board for what they were either paid to do or elected to do. So, with that said, if there's no more discussion on this,
I think we need to give them some direction at least.
who's them?
All 3 committees.
I think the superintendent will probably get back to us on that.
Okay.
Superintendent will, and so what I'll be suggesting, I'll say at a minimum, Trails Committee will probably say, continue on, and in a future update, make some suggestions about where we think it's ripe for future areas for kind of holistically the Trails Network. I think the board would really benefit from that.
Yeah.
And so amongst yourselves, you guys might actually have the best knowledge of that and be able to make a recommendation and kind of do a check-in. For the pickleball and golf course clubhouse, I'll probably suggest they go on a different scheduling that's not month to month, that it's quarterly or less. And that if they have no agenda items, that they cancel the meeting but assign the next meeting. So they need to keep it contiguous at those times.
Yeah.
And it's on the chairs of those groups. So there'll be something along those lines. And so that's what I'll be communicating to the staff liaisons to share with their CACs.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is E, is continued discussion on strategic planning priorities.
All right.
It's the big one.
So
This is short, right?
this is, I mean, that's kind of, they're your strategic planning
Wait,
priorities.
those
This could be
were
short
long.
or long. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out is I didn't change any of the language that was reshared with the board, but I did make a work plan, which Director Fields requested. And I will tell you, the work plan is pretty much just the objectives formed into a table, and then little squares highlighted for our target dates to get them done, and it does have the values. So that is one of those. And if anyone's looking at hard copies, I printed off oversized hard copies. In the PDF, they're actually like an 11 by 17. If you print them and they're in an 8.5 by 11, it's going to look pretty tiny. But I will say that depending on stylistically, I talked to Director Conan about this. If the board prefers the tabled kind of work plan version more, that could just be the version. We just add the goals next to it so it's clear to read and you don't have to go back and forth. There's always the danger of things getting out of sync. But it depends on what folks like better. So I kind of like tables and things because that's how my brain works. But that would just be a different approach. Then we received 3 comment letters. Thank you, board members. From Directors Smith and Master and Slider, thank you each. And so that was then published so that everyone could see each other's comments and say, yeah, I generally agree with this, or that's not how I was thinking about it, or however you would like to shape it. And so at this point, I really wanted to hear what the board had to say about those comments that we received. Say, do we go ahead and integrate those? Do we not? Are there other things that we have thought about in the interim that need to be added, removed, or amended? So those sorts of things. So from there, these are your priorities, and I look forward to listening to your guys, everyone talk to each other.
Okay, discussion? There's a lot
Yeah.
here on this. I didn't have any problems with Matt or with any of the additions, to tell you the truth. I didn't see that it was a big, I have made some additions and
Yeah, I don't really have any, I agree both of you guys had pretty clear comments that made sense.
I just didn't know about the dates,
Sure.
considering it's gonna be the next year by the time this is really kicked in. So you might wanna look at that, but, it's pretty, in-depth, all of these projects and plans and what we'd like to do. And again, this is a roadmap of what we'd like to do. We won't be probably able to do all of these things, but it's a good roadmap, I think.
Yeah, I agree. One comment that I think the three of you made that I agree with is along with the district-wide assessment of existing facilities, to make sure there's something about a proposed maintenance plan along with that. I feel like those things kind of go hand in hand, so I don't know how in-depth we want to get on that, but that's one comment that I saw come up and I agree with. The other thing that I would suggest, and Brandon, I think you made this comment as well, is taking out the cost targets on the cost targets that are in there, because I do believe that some of those numbers are a bit arbitrary and a ballpark number and change year to year depending on many factors. And I think that without a bigger explanation on these, because this is all open to the public, without a bigger explanation, it could lead the public to misinterpreting the goals and what those number figures really mean. So I would suggest we take those off, personally.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. When you put a number down, it could escalate. Let's say it's whatever that we're using is made out of steel. Well, it could escalate 50% by the next year. So, and then the public saying, well, you had down this, now why is it costing that, or whatever. I just don't know if the numbers are realistic. Unless we're using them for STC charges, then that's another reason why you have those numbers there. So you have to look at that mythology and figure out, do they need to be there? Do they not need to be there? Do we just write, our STCs use them in this way? I don't know.
Is that a question to staff?
Do you have an answer?
I don't think they need to be in the strategic planning priorities. They could be, should the board choose to. I think what I heard when we talked about this initially in July was that this was kind of used to help inform our capital planning as we went through the budget process. It sounded like we kind of did them over and over again to kind of in tandem. I don't know that that's completely necessary, because what we do is we see that in our capital outlay section of the budget. And so if it just lives in the budget, and that's where we get the numbers, we use that to inform the SDC methodology when we occasionally update that. I think that's probably going to be adequate, and it doesn't tie the board's hands. However, if the board wants to feel there's consistency and certainty between its strategic planning priorities and that capital outlay, that's fine. But it would necessitate us changing those strategic planning priorities as we see that, hey, there's a cost escalation, because we can't have problems where things get out of sync. And the budget is really probably the better place for the numbers. And so I would worry that we feel like we have to use the strategic planning priorities in the budget, even if we know, we think that things went up by 3% or 5%, and they really should be reflecting that. So I don't want to tie our hands. But at the same time, sharing information can be good. So that's kind of gets into how do you want the strategic planning priorities as a tool for the board and a communication tool to the public to be. Because I would like to take whatever we end up with and put that somewhere on the website where the public can get to it. Because I think that's a fair thing. And I'll tell you, this is going to be printed and it's going to be living on the wall in my office. You don't have to do that with yours. You can put it wherever you want. But so that's, the numbers are really a board decision, but if they get removed, there's not a negative impact on staff.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, some of the things that I added in here, and if you folks were able to read it, I talked about, changing it. We have many properties that are not zoned as parks, and we need to look at that. So I threw that in here. I threw under goals, objective, evaluate pricing and programming strategies to make sure that our pricings were where they need to be, whether it's to get into the pool, whether it's to go to golf, whether those strategies need to be looked at, I think. I did talk about create a preventative maintenance plan for facilities and parks. I think that's really important to have that, especially from a cost analysis basis, that's why I put that in. Like Rennie Field, you put in so many dollars for Rennie Field. I know it's gonna cost more than that, so why do we put that in? I mean, that's one of the things I put, I'm just, and then I review personnel costs and benefits to maintain a stable workforce within the budget. I thought that was important, because we're gonna be looking at some increases in benefits and so on and so forth, not because we're giving them better benefits, it's because insurance is gonna get higher and so on and so forth, those type of things. Not to say that you're in insurance. Yeah, and I said objective, review and update district policies, personnel use of district properties, ADA transition plan we need to set in the district-wide, especially with me being on the state grant committee, that's always something that we look at. And nonprofits operating under CPRD's umbrella. And the reason I put that is because historically, in the past, we've had some nonprofits working with us. Right now, we have BMX, cultural centers, sports concessionaires, competitive teams. We have a lot of different nonprofits that work with us. One went under. Basically, there's embezzlement in a big way. And, they started pointing fingers at the district, even though we weren't really involved. We need to make sure that any nonprofits that are working with us, that we review them at least on a yearly basis to make sure that they are not misappropriating their funds. Because they will come back and look at us, because they are nonprofits on our fields, in our pool, whatever. Anyway, I just put that in there, just so. Okay. So I don't know if you want that to stay in there, those are just some of the things I threw in.
Can I respond to that part, some of those last ones real quick?
Sure.
If the rest of the board would want to include those, I would suggest that those last three bullets that you mentioned, the personnel use of district property/housing, ADA transition plan district-wide, and nonprofits operating under CPRD umbrella, that those go to, in respectively, personnel use of district properties, goal 10, ADA transition plan under goal 2, and nonprofits operating under CPRD umbrella under goal 10, if those sound okay.
Yeah, just the nonprofits operating, you might want to expand about financial and so on.
And I could expand the
Okay.
language, that wouldn't be a problem.
So then is it reasonable to say these comments can get pooled back in and then maybe the whole thing can get put into the consent agenda so it can just move along next time? Or what's kind of what's the
only
best practice for that?
So I think that I can reconcile all the comments that I've received. The only thing I would want clarification on is whether, two things. One, do you prefer the narrative format plus a work plan? Do you prefer just the narrative format? Or do you prefer just the kind of work plan tabular version? So there's not kind of two things. So it'd be, so I think
like
you guys
the
can,
two.
if you don't,
Yeah.
Both
you
of
like
them.
both? Okay.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
So
me too.
yeah, that's what I want to hear from both of you, but we're open to it. I just don't want things to get out of sync but we
Yeah.
can manage that. And then and does anyone else have an opinion on that one?
My thing is what's, we can read them all, I think, what's gonna be easiest for the staff to do. I mean, I really appreciate the staff and the amount of work they put in such a short amount of time to get this done. Something that we needed to do for a long time, so thank you for all the work done.
We didn't even have to call in the COG to do this. We just did it ourselves. So, but the board's been cooperative, so that's what we wanted. But yeah, we can do both if that's what the group prefers.
Okay.
So, the other thing would be the cost targets. That is a discussion amongst all five, and I would like the five of you to get on the same page. And I just haven't heard from quite everyone yet on what the.
I'm neutral on it. Sounds like we have more negatives than positives on that, so I'm fine with removing it if that's the.
Director Fields, you asked for the work plan to have the target, so I didn't know if you had an opinion on that.
Well, I'd like to see what we're working towards.
We'll always have that in the budget, and if we need to have something that is more structured, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, on essentially a capital program,
Yeah.
that I would like, I just put it out there, the board can always ask those questions. And between the SDC methodology and our budget, I don't think that they need to be in your strategic planning priorities, and they could end up being confusing if they get out of sync. Because I as staff want the ability to calibrate those numbers as accurately as possible. We do the budget annually, so that's one of the better places to do it, and that's really reflective of our capital program. And Casey and Brian have both been exploring software options and other things that we can look at as something to give us kind of an asset inventory and depreciation model, so that we can think about those, and this gets off the strategic planning priorities and kind of into budgeting, but something that can also help us make sure we're keeping an eye on those and make sure we're structuring our budget in a way that, do we need a sinking fund? Do we need to take that reserve fund that we have and start using it in a different way in anticipating what we think that capital program is telling us is going to be the need in the future? So we don't have situations like we do with the Second Street Community Center in Bonnie Benedict, where we have an asset that's hard on us.
I just look at it this way, the taxpayers see, okay, for this playground to go in, I'm just using numbers, it's gonna cost $50,000. Okay, for the playground to go in. Staff brings back information, well, no. By the way, it's gonna be $250,000. And then the public's gonna say, well, wait a second, you just said it was this. And so I don't really wanna get into that part. When it comes up that we're gonna do something, they're gonna do their due diligence at that time, come to us with numbers, and that's gonna be the number. And that's gonna be in the budget, at least from where I look at it. Anything, you guys all good with not putting the numbers
Yeah,
down?
that's fine.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. I think it creates false expectation and confusion.
As long as we have somewhere for people to find that information, or at least know how to ask those questions,
Yeah.
so that
Let's
it's
see it
not
in
a
the budget.
secret. We don't want to keep any of this stuff a secret, right? It's just, we don't want to give false information.
I think we can commit to that. And if the board feels like we're not doing a good job with that, then recommendations on how we can do better are always welcome. So, and welcome from the public.
Okay, anything else? On
That's all staff.
strategic planning priorities, thank you again for the work you folks did.
I just want clarification on how we adopt this. Are we going to let it compile again and be an action item or consent agenda? What's,
If someone here wanted to make a motion for staff to publish the strategic planning priorities as discussed here at this board meeting with the agreed to revisions, then staff could do that.
I'll make a motion as so stated. Oh,
Who got it?
Jason got
That's not
it.
arm wrestling.
Was that
It doesn't
Director
matter.
Fields?
Give it to Jason and I'll second.
There you go. Okay, can we have a voice vote on this then?
Could I ask then, Director Fields, would you kindly restate the motion for the record?
I agree with it or I'd make a motion as stated. There
So you
go.
might want to state the motion back.
we can-
like-
Clay had a good 3 sentences
I was
there,
gonna
so-
say, motion to, I believe what I had said previously was a motion to publish the board's strategic planning priorities as amended in the session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shorten that a little bit, but I think that's for the
Alright.
good of everybody.
Right.
Okay, so Director Fields,
Aye.
Director Conan,
Aye.
Chairman McMaster,
Aye.
Director Slider,
aye.
Director Smith. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we have board comments. Next.
Oh, sure, yeah. I took my son to the BMX tournament after our last board meeting, And while he was super excited about that, and that was an amazing event, by the way, the first thing he actually noticed was that the Ewing Young slide was replaced. So thank you to staff for that. I'm sure it took a lot of effort to find the right kind of slide that would fit there. So Brian, thank you to your group for getting that up. I know a lot of parents get excited when things reopen. Equally so, I noticed the Jakewith Park slide is also reopened. I'm not sure if that was replaced or repaired, but thank you for that. That's awesome. And then lastly, I noticed on the website the notice that the Buckley Park swings were closed for some kind of path and route stuff. This specifically is the kind of public notice that I appreciate seeing, so that if somebody goes to the park and they're like, why are the swings closed or slide closed, they go to the website and it's right there, right up front. I really appreciate that notice. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. No comments.
Well, that may come as a surprise to everybody here, but I am running for county commissioner. And so I've been going to the Board of Commissioners meetings, and one of the things that I heard that came out of this meeting was that new applications for housing is down by 40%. So that is going to take a toll on the amount that we bring in for CPRD. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of that. Another thing is I want to say something. I've been knocking on doors for several weeks now, and there's nothing more important than going and meeting somebody face to face. So specifically for these property owners that have properties adjacent to Ewing Young, you can have a one-on-one conversation, and somebody can be absolutely vehemently think that they're going to disagree with you, and you can just let them know, well, look, we are going to move forward on this. What is palatable? What could we do that could work for you? So I do believe that there's absolute value in having a one-on-one. That doesn't mean that that's the only step we're going to have, but I think that is a preemptive strike, which is so powerful, because if you go into a room where you have everybody that's already got their mind made up, you just have this one big loud voice at you, no, 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 no. And I just think if you have a conversation and let them know we are going to be moving forward on this, and we just have to figure out how can we make this work for everybody here. And I realize we're not going to get everybody on board on this, but I think it's important that we give everybody a voice, and I think that it's very valuable, like I say, if we do a one-on-one. Another thing is that I wanted to talk about is, as I've been knocking on these doors, our economy is not super great, okay? We've had a few years where the cost of goods and services and everything else has been stratospheric. And I will tell you, as I've knocked on doors here in Yamhill County, one woman in particular I spoke to yesterday, she was telling me that she has to save up 3 months of her Social Security check just to pay for property taxes. So, if we start thinking about doing any kind of a levy or any kind of a bond or anything like this, I personally, where I live, I have a neighbor that's going to be moving. They're going to have to sell their home because they cannot afford to live here anymore. So I met a young couple, a young man that was 28 years old, and his girlfriend was 26 years old. He makes $65,000 a year, and she makes $50,000 a year. That's $115,000 a year, and they're telling me that they are barely getting by. So anyways, as we start talking about and thinking about what we want to do here at Chehalis Parks and Rec, I just think that we got to be cognizant about how people are doing in our community and what we want to put, what we want to ask them to pay for, in addition to what we're already doing. So one last thing is, as I've been going to all these different cities, I will tell you that nobody has got better parks than Newberg and Dundee. And, we are so incredibly blessed, and I believe everybody in Dundee and Newberg is so incredibly blessed to have CPRD and the staff that we have here, and the Board of Commissioners, the board that has been leading CPRD over these years. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Oh, shoot. Well, Jason took some of my stuff. I don't know what the heck you're doing. If you read the news, over these last, I'd say, 6 or 7 months, you've had park districts and park departments in different cities in the news. There was an article, I think, just this last week about the Portland Parks Department. And I always like to cheer on Yamhill County to not be like Portland. So I urge everyone to read that. The Portland Parks Department had an audit which basically said they were derelict in the way they funded their parks, especially their maintenance program. So I know that's something that you've been talking about, is how we're going to continue to maintain what we have. Then you have out in McMinnville, you have a bond for a new rec center. I think Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District just passed a bond too. And all that is to say, I agree with you halfway, which is only halfway. We need to really be diligent in how we're funding our parks and the ongoing maintenance, and make sure that we have the ability to continue to do that. And this is the other half. But we need to do that without raising taxes, if at all possible. So maintenance levies, bonds, so forth. I understand when there's special projects like the aquatic center or something like that, you give folks the choice and then they get a vote on what they want to purchase or pay for. But I do think this district, our next phase, as you've often said, of planning has to be how we maintain things and how we can afford them. So I think we're on the right track, and I think also updating our SDC methodology to include the maintenance items. I know my notes for our strategic planning are, we need to have a plan in our strategic plan for boring stuff, bathrooms, parking lots, play structures. And then I also think we should have a long-term plan for things like biking and access in our urban areas, as well as riverfront development. So those things might sound like, how can you do both of those? I think we can, but we just have to have our eye on the prize. We have to have our eye on those goals. And if our goal is to do those things without raising any kind of taxes or levies, I think it is possible.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few things. One is that Brandon and I will be working this next month on the superintendent evaluation. He's coming up for that, so we will be going through that, and hopefully it turns out. No.
Be ruthless. That's okay.
One of the things that I saw was that we're now offering grad nights at the aquatic center, which is awesome. I think I talked about that when I left here. I said, you guys need to get these grad nights because they financially they're a great item for the aquatic center to have. So that's cool to hear that. Then having 1,100 kids in fall sports, nice. 2,000 next year.
You're stealing my thunder.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry I read your packet. I won't read it anymore. One thing I wanted to ask, though, you talked about the number of volunteer coaches, which is great that we have those. What, with today's society and problems that are occurring, what type of training, and when you come up and give your report, if you could talk about that a little bit, what type of training did they have to be certified to be able to be a volunteer coach in our district? I think it's really important for us and the public to know that. And then Dundee Park having 600 people at their party in the park was great to hear. It's good to see those folks coming out. Also, in there, it talked about community center rentals. We used to rent the community center down there by the fire station all the time. So it sounded like it had never been rented, but it had been rented quite a bit in the past. So rent it again. And glad to see that we're partnering with Serve Day, and they did a lot of cleaning and that type of thing. I think that was really important to see that we are working with George Fox and getting that amazing free labor from them. Thank you very much. And I'll end with this. I agree with some of our board members talking about the costs of things and taxes and so on and so forth. I get that part. But a lot of people will not come to our communities unless they feel that they have a quality of life to live here. I've had people come talk to me all the time about, I came to Newberg because you have this, the cultural center. I came to Newberg because you have this. So those things, if we neglect them or don't have them or don't improve on them or don't build upon that, then you will not get the folks coming to live in our communities that you'd like to have them come and spend their money here. So there's two sides to every coin. And so we need to, whether it's, and economic development's a big one, and I think that we are one of the Park District, and I can brag about this, and I'm sure all the board members agree with me here, we are one of the biggest economic drivers in our area, in our district. People come to play ball, they come to swim, they come to walk, they come to ride, they come to do all those things. That's money coming back in our community. If they weren't here, I mean, what kind of district would we have? So I'm proud of what the staff does, I'm proud of what this board and other boards have done. And with that said, I think now that we have, folks, thank you for hanging out to give your reports on the heritage trails, if you'd like to do that, or are you guys good?
Dennis was actually signed up to do the report on the trail committee, and I think we talked a little bit about what we've been up to, so unless anybody has any questions, I can skip.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you. Golf club development, they're not here, and they didn't have meetings, and pickleball is going to be meeting on Monday, so do we have a report from them at all, or no?
We do not, that I'm aware of.
Okay, so without further ado, the next on the agenda is our superintendent's report.
All right, so the superintendent report, I was only back for, I think, a week or two before we had to put this stuff into the packet, so you got a lighter one this time around. But the big one that I wanted to make sure I highlight that I still put in here, but is the community input survey. I'm still really excited about it. Last check, we were at over 800 responses, so that's very pleasing to me. I'd love for us to get some more. In the networks or, in the virtual world, anyone looking at this recording, it's going to be open through the end of next week, and people are welcome to share that. We've tried to put it in a variety of places, even cards on the table in the back of the room if people want to scan that. Of those 800, approximately 100 are from the mailers that we sent out. People are opening those, which is good. So we'll see what the results are. We're really looking forward to sharing those with the board. We're going to, like I said, that's going to be part of what we share at the open houses that are going to occur in the board report. The virtual event, the date was to be determined, but that's actually going to be on November 20th, which I mentioned before. So we're excited about that. As I understand it, that open house format like that is a little new for us too. So I want to say how much I appreciate Brian and Julie and Kat and Casey all telling me that it was doable and that it wasn't completely crazy, but I think we're gonna have a really good one. Board members, I will be sending you an email. I would like to invite all of the board members to participate as facilitators in that. But I will tell you that I'm going to assign you to different stations. You get to, and I'm going to take your opinions into account, but what I don't want is someone accusing us of having a quorum of folks talking to each other. So if one or two people are in one breakout room, one or two are in another breakout room, one or two another, kind of want to know where everyone is to a point. But that's going to be, and we'll probably put out a notice of potential quorum and those sorts of procedural things. But we just want to make sure that we adhere to the public meeting laws while doing this, but I would love to have the board participate. And in particular, it would be fantastic to have board members in there to add context and value to those conversations on some of those topics like places for bikes and Rennie Field and Ewing Young Bridge, and say, look, you all are expressing these feelings. Let me share what happened on the board. What the board talked about, I may feel this or that way, but the board, we spoke about it like this. We heard this. And I think that'll be a really good perspective, and I think the public will really get a lot of value out of it, being able to interact directly with their electeds on tangible issues that if they walk into that breakout room, they probably care about it.
Yeah, my only concern is that, since we are involved with policy and not operations, that we have clear guidelines on what we're going to be talking about. I don't want to say, this is going to be built or this is going to be done or whatever it is. All of us would need those clear guidelines if we're going to be involved, because I don't want to misspeak. So anyway, that's. fine.
Happy to do that. And the other thing I would say is you will not be thrown into a breakout room without staff. Staff will be there, one or more would be present at any of those to act as the primary facilitator. And so any board member can say, you know what, for the sake of, because I'm in this role and I don't want to get into deliberation, or I don't want to commit to things that are really a staff area, then, you know, that's guidance that I'm happy to give and provide you with that. And that staff is there to assist you and vice versa. So, and from their role as staff and you and your role as an elected. So it would be really fantastic. Now, if any of you have conflicts or don't think that's a scene that you want to be a part of, no harm, no foul, but you're all invited to do it. I think it would be really great to have you if you choose to. So those announcements, you'll see those starting to go out. Feel free to share those with your networks. Encouraging others to do that too would be fantastic. I wanted to say too that recently myself and a couple of other staff got to go to the Oregon Park and Recreation Association meeting, so ORPA. And if you want a highlight reel of some really good projects throughout the state, they have a video that they posted. It's on their YouTube channel. That's their 2025 awards. As nearby as Wilsonville, for some really great community input with their disc golf course was one of them. And so that, that's just right around the corner. So unless I'm mixing it up with a different town. which is possible. ORPA. So that would be worth, if you just want to get a look, what is the other good work happening around? Great highlight reel to think about that and ask ourselves, is that something we could or should be doing? Or should we be highlighting our own work? So now that I'm the superintendent, as I understand it, I'm supposed to go out and try and find ways to get us trophies and have everyone tell us we're doing a good job. I think that's what folks in these positions do. So if I see those opportunities, I will say that I've run out of spare time, but I've been trying to figure out the right award to try and kind of throw out to highlight how great our aquatic center is doing and how great our instructors and program administrators are doing for the lifeguarding classes they're doing in partnership with the school that have been turned into employees for us. So that is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, training up those, and it's probably a benefit for other aquatics professionals in the area too. So everyone else gets to benefit from the good work we're doing. So a great model. I wanted to let the board know that we did get a request for an SDC, our System Development Charge fee waiver. That was something I've already evaluated it based on our SDC administrative guidelines. That starts with the superintendent, and if the individual does not like the outcome, they are allowed to appeal it to the board. So that individual request was denied. To me, it was for an accessory dwelling unit, and it didn't seem like it met some of the criteria to waive those fees. But they do have the ability to come before the board, state their case, and so that's been shared with them too. So if they do that, there are some timelines associated with that, so that would be possible that we'd have to convene a special meeting depending on when that lands. So if that does, I'll just make sure I tell you, because some of those are time sensitive on when we have to give them a determination. Based on what we see.
So we charge SDCs on accessory dwelling units?
Anything that creates a new dwelling unit. So we have one rate for single-family homes, multifamily units, manufactured homes, and ADUs.
It's not the same.
They
It's a lower
differ.
rate,
It's a
yeah.
lower rate.
Okay.
So, in this case, and I really encourage the individual to do it, to also make their case with me. They kind of made an initial submission. We had a conversation. I said, if there's any additional documentation or rationale that you want to provide, do that. I felt that from the district's perspective, from a fiscal and fiduciary responsibility, and a consistency one, it needed to be a denial. But, that person, anyone is willing to state has the opportunity to do that. And I didn't encourage him, that I wanted to make sure he had all the information he needs. Earlier this month, I wanted to let folks know, went to another urban renewal meeting with the city of Dundee, so they're still deliberating on that with the request we put in for $1.1 million in funding support for phase 1 of Sanders State Park. They're still chewing on it. They continued it to a future meeting, and the reason they chose to do that this time is the interim city manager didn't have the kind of cash flow analysis and projections readily available. So the interim city manager for Dundee at this time is Brandon Hamilton. So we're still hoping we will get that. The framework that's been worked out thus far from some of the work would be one that the trigger for the repayment plan that would be part of that, them funding us, that we front the money, they repay us over time, would be that would begin with the end of phase 1 construction. So we still have some time in there based on that framework, but that's what we're looking at. So still trying to pursue that. I don't know if we'll get the entire thing. I think we'll get something, but more would be better.
I think we should get something.
I think we should get something too. We have some background work going on for Rennie Field. We're doing some coordination meetings, making sure we pick that up to get into land use this winter so we can get that application done in construction in summer. We've also got some continued work for that other land use application for Jakewith for the modification of the condition of approval. So those are both going on in the background. We have I think it's either an RFQ or an RFP for Recreation Ready that's being administered and project managed by Taste Newberg. And so that is on the street. They say they've communicated with me that they feel like they've got some folks who are interested that seem like they're good quality leads. So they're hoping that we'll get some good applications for that. So that's continuing. We also had a kickoff meeting with the Chehalem Glen Golf Course Clubhouse feasibility study. So we've started talking to the consultants on that. And so that's moving along. And I wanted to mention too, I put in the superintendent report highlight on the Leadership Chehalem Valley. That's a program that's through the chamber. It's been around for a long time. We have one of our staff members, Wendy Roberts, participating in that. So I'm really pleased to see CPRD participating in that. I think it's a great development pipeline. It's also a great way to create connections throughout the community with different organizations and their emerging leaders as well. So a good place for us to be and to have our emerging leaders be a part of that too. Part of that, because it was Natural Resource and History Day, was I went ahead and did a presentation to their group on different leadership styles. So I think they liked it okay. I hope they did. But more importantly, we got to go out, well, not more importantly, but still importantly, we went out to Shampooey State Park. We got a walk and talk with the superintendent out there. And I tentatively asked if they would be open to something like a disc golf challenge between CPRD and Shampooey State Park. And he said if we could come up with a way to make that work, that they were open to it. So, Brian, if you know any particularly active disc golfers. He said he didn't actually know who that would be, but they have a really active friends group for their disc golf course. And I thought it would be fun if we found a kind of competitive, but probably kind of mellow and friendly way for our disc golf community and their disc golf community to, decide who's better.
I bet we could beat them at pickleball.
I mean, those are the sorts of things. And if the board has connections for friendly challenges, ways to do fun things, whether that's with the public, with our groups, and kind of indirect groups that we interact with, if you have concepts on that you think might be doable or kind of like low effort and fun, float those, because you have some connections that staff doesn't always have. But also, if staff has ideas on how to do that stuff, we'll be thinking about it too. So that's all I have for tonight. If anyone's got questions about specific things, I'm happy to answer them, unless they're in Casey's capital projects report, in which case he can answer them.
I don't know anything. I got a few things.
Sorry about that, Casey.
Richard's going to scold me if you don't get the mic.
Yeah, he is. They managed to get paving the first lift paved at Jakewith Park. That's in lieu of, they had some failed proof roll testing after the last half inch of rain on, I think, the 13th. So we waited, and they had to cover it up one Saturday with plastic, and they were able to get it paved yesterday, which is important because it seals it up, and they won't have to worry about keeping plastic on there. So they can continue to work on the fence and the storm facility that's there and clean up the project. And if they get an opportunity in the wintertime, they'll come back and pave more. But we know that they can't put the epoxy coating on until the weather's conducive to that. So that's kind of where it's sitting. They worked until 8:30 last night to get the paving done. So they're trying their best. Sanders State Park, those guys are awesome out there. I want to say working with the Saunders Company is a whole different ballgame. They're pretty much done with the water line for the city of Dundee. They've got all the park shape. They've probably got 50% more of the concrete sidewalks done. They've hydroseeded the whole park, so it should be sprouting and able to withstand any rain that happens this, hopefully, Friday, tomorrow. And they're just a great group of people to work with. We've had some concessions to the city, or just questions to the city engineer, who is AKS, John Christensen. They've been very responsive. Our team has been responsive, and everyone's going really well. We had a pre-underground utility meeting last Thursday, where PGE, Comcast, and Ziply were there. That's to proceed probably around the first week of November, first to second week. Plans are all done. And the undergrounding will get done, and then they'll start on the road portion. So things are going along pretty well. Bypass trail, we are waiting on one permit from DSL. And we may even be able to get around that. There's been some questions asked, because it's a fill permit. And if they can keep under 50 yards for crane access, they can work all winter long. So hopefully that works itself out.
Have we had any change orders in either one of our active projects?
I think one on the Saunders.
Because change orders are usually monetarily
Yeah,
driven.
yeah.
And was that something we just didn't know about?
It was something that was left out of the contract. I didn't bring it up because it was DEQ monitoring, which is a requirement on a project. And they have someone that's certified to do that, so.
So do we have any special inspections or anything we need out there besides something like that?
They're doing all those.
So that's part of the contract?
Yeah, that's part of the contract.
So nothing that's been buried that we didn't expect to be there?
No, and we've been doing inspections on Jakeworth as well, through NV5, proof rolls, and also we did compaction testing on all the asphalt, because it has to meet ODOT's standards. And it's all passing, so it's good to have people that care about what our projects are. NV5, John and Brett from.
They have the experience to be on top of that and understand
Yeah,
there's a problem,
They're
fix
helping
it.
a lot. They're been very responsive to.
Because I worry about that
project.
roll out there. I know you do too. Yeah.
Yeah, when you see a half inch of rain kind of destroy a proof roll when it's already passed the week before that, it's a problem.
Okay, thank you. Staff, who would like to start?
No, let me take a lead. I'm gonna be really brief, I apologize.
How it is every day.
Could you do me a favor? Okay, I guess we can't get you on, all right. And we can't hear you?
Because that could be going to Arizona, Nevada, or something like that. That could be a problem. But anyway, I jest. Anyway, I'd like to lead off my report. It has the usual stuff that we're taking care of, but I'd really like to thank, there's a couple individuals in the room tonight with our Crystal Riley and our Trails Committee, but the group with the Crystal Riley Foundation, and those members also belong to that. They helped us implement, and we received, and this is a big chunk, and it's a little over half of what we're probably gonna need, but 12 semi-loads, 48 footers of surface material, and that's the hog fuel, it's a type of bark, whatever. That ends up to 168 units that we have trucked up to the top of Riley property. They formed, neighbors came together, a lot of volunteers and worked with staff, and we pretty much are getting close to having the whole east side marked. And it's still open for all user groups. We'll see if it's open for anybody after this weekend. One weekend at a time. But it's really between the gravel we put on all the different switchbacks, again, working with staff's knowledge and expertise, and then the volunteers, continual trucking of this material out there. Because unfortunately, and it's just, as you all know, the uniqueness of trails, you can't just go out there and dump, units at a time. You can only take certain types of vehicles out there with small amounts of material, and then you're manually raking that out and fluffing it up. But it's absolutely amazing, and to work with community members to do this is super rewarding, and it's so beneficial for the district. So I can't thank them enough, and the two ladies that are here right now, and you deserve a lot of kudos. Thank you very much. It's awesome. Some of the other cool stuff we've done, we're doing all the, it's leaf season, so fall prep on all that beautiful landscaping we have throughout the district can be really labor intensive. Everybody always cautioned you, hey, some districts like to take the approach of we'll just bark dust everything and cement it over or whatever, and we have the opposite approach. I think landscaping, natural resources are a huge asset for any district or community, and there's huge economic values as well as just the physical values that those provide. And so we definitely do our share there, and we're going hard there, clearing all that up. And some of the other main highlights we did, not to steal Julie's thunder, but there definitely is BMX tournaments, there was a softball tournaments, there's soccer tournaments, and there's water polo tournaments. And that's going on every weekend, every month. And the guys behind the scenes and gals behind the scene are doing a great job keeping those facilities going, and couldn't be more proud of that. So now,
Brian, I'm sorry, I have to ask you a question. On the footing that was put down, did that hold up pretty well over the rains this last weekend?
I think these ladies can attest it absolutely has.
Okay.
It's feedback we're receiving from, especially the equestrian user group, is that it's huge. It's made a big difference.
But just for hiking, I know I hiked last winter and there was a number of trails down low that are just, they're mud pits. And so if it can avoid, creating the mud pits that we've had every winter, that would just be amazing.
We've added culverts down by the cistern or whatever. And
Okay.
that's made that usable with the rock and the extra bark down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, it's cool to watch the evolution
Yeah.
of the park, and there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah.
This does not work, so,
If you could come up to the podium, then I'd appreciate it.
Sorry.
no, you're good. Okay. Julie Peterson, Special Services Supervisor. I would also like to talk about the World Series. That did not go the way I thought it was gonna go. Chauncey Billups today, it's been a busy month.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see, so for special services, September is by far our biggest and busiest month. And that is because we follow the school district's schedule. But also, we do a lot of staffing. And that takes a tremendous amount of time. I know Brian goes through that too, but, most of those George Fox kids, they leave us, after they get out of school in May. And then we have the high school kids come in during the summer. And then the high school kids go back to school. When school starts, we lose them. And then the George Fox kids come back. So we always want to welcome all of, we want them to, we want to bring back the ones that have worked with us before because they have the experience, but sometimes we can't do that. And so our staff has done such a great job of interviewing, background checks, the whole thing. That takes some time. So I'm really proud of everybody for doing that. And a couple years ago, we increased the minimum wage for our employees, seasonal, and it's really made a difference. So now we're, 5 years into that, maybe? Do you think? 4? And it's really made a difference. The people that we have working for us are great, and that's the biggest difference that I see in the district. And so I want to thank the board for making those decisions because it does make an impact. Let's see. Jim stole my thunder, but I did want to mention something about the community center. Brian, Matt, Compton, and I are working on that. We do have classes going on in there right now. I remember when I was a little girl, we played bingo in that hall. But we have some facilities that we can rent. The senior center, the Lynn Patrick meeting room, Falcon Crest room over here. What was the other one? The Armory, the senior center, Lynn Patrick room. And so we really rent those a lot. And so we're looking for more space. And we were booked 2 weekends from now. And so I called the cultural center and they were able to find a space for an 80th birthday party, which was great, and a good collaboration between the two agencies. But I think that the community center would be very valuable for that. We have, not only is it a large space, we have mirrors against the wall, but we also have a kitchen and refrigerators and all of that. So we're excited about working on that and expanding into the community center, and so Matt and we're all working on that. The aquatic center, thank you for noticing the grad night. That's really going to be a fun. It's a perfect fit, and we will all be there. Wendy will be there. Krista will be there. I'll be there. We'll get there at 10 p.m. at night, and we won't leave till 5 a.m.
What's the rate that we're charging on that?
I think it's $30. $30 a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a set fee for them just to come. You're charging per child?
We're gonna try that. See how that works out for us. It's kind of neat. They're gonna have not bounce houses, but they have what's called inflatables, and they're gonna put them in the gymnasium, and they're really neat. It's kind of a new thing, but it's insurance-wise, it's a good activity because these inflatables are almost like I don't even know how to explain it, but people aren't actually hitting each other, right? It's a very separate kind of inflatable, but they're bringing those, and they have their own insurance and all of that. But comp pool is very busy because school's back. Because we have the youth swim team, we have the George Fox swim team, we have the high school polo team, we have, of course, our lap swimmers in the pool, and so Wendy has done a tremendous job scheduling all those teams. It sometimes gets contentious, but man, she is on it, and she does a great job of doing that early, so everyone knows what's going on. They can fight it out at that time. Let's see, so for the sports department, we have at least, Nicole put 30 games in here, 34 games during the weekend, but we're not including the 30 softball games. So that's almost 70 games going on in Newberg on the weekend. And it's funny, we were talking about Taste Newberg, and I'm on that board as an ex officio. And while I was sitting we met this week, and while I was sitting there, they were talking about, how do we get more people to come to Newberg? Because because of the TLT money. And so everybody, there were probably, 10 people there. And as everyone talked about what their organization was doing at the time, we, CPRD, I spoke, but then there were 4 other people that were there representing other agencies, and we were involved somehow in what they were doing. And I would say the lady from the Fairfield was there, and she said that they are booked with teams, softball teams, right? So that's been that's been really nice for them. The other thing was the lady from the cultural center was there, and so I thought that was great. What was the other one? The markets. They were talking about the Wednesday market, which we partner with NDC. And the last one was, I have to think about it really quick, but I just thought that was really neat, to hear that, and just really proud of the district for, working with others and helping everyone in the community. Next in December 5th, bring your money. Our concession stand's we're going to wheel that concession stand out here. Just kidding. we have 60, okay, right now we have 140 coaches. And that's incredible. You had asked me about the training that we do for them. It's kind of a long answer because each sport is so different. So let me give the example of football. Football, they have, actually their requirements, because they're youth and because they, the concussions are such a factor, they have to go through 6 hours, I just wrote this down as you were talking about it, but 6 hours online of just how to be an effective coach. They have to attend a coaching clinic. They have to they have to complete a concussion testing class. We have a player safety coach that goes through all the first aid. All of them have to be first aid, have to have their CPR and first aid cards. And then I think the most important part of that is we work with the high school coaches, the high school football coaches, very involved with the football program, the youth program. So, and basketball is completely different. And soccer, we have 70 coaches. And so some of that is hard. It's hard to get 70 coaches in a room, and it's hard to get people to work, put on a clinic or something like that. But the sports department does a really good job.
One quick question. So
Yes.
every one of our volunteer coaches is required to go through a background check before they can be out on the field?
100%. Anyone that works with kids has to have a background check.
I just wanna
All
make
of
sure.
our employees do, but we have a form that they fill out, and it's always been like that. And I would say not only coaches, but our requirement is that anyone that works with kids, practice, even if you're just a safety cone standing there during soccer, you must be background checked. And I know Mark Martin used to talk about that all the time. He used to lay awake at night worrying about that, But it's a big job, I would say, to get all those guys in there. But people want their kids to be around coaches that have background checks.
Do we use a service or we go through the school district? How's that work?
We go through service. Well, it's tied to our paychecks. We have, this is after your time, but we have our payroll system. We do background checks on all of our employees,
Right, I
both
get
seasonal
that.
and full-time. So we also run our volunteers through that as well. And
Okay.
it's really, it's better, I can tell you, than some of the outside sports leagues that we play in. They gather more information, I would say, than any other outside leagues.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've had great weather this year, and so softball it's just still outstanding, and it'll continue to grow. But that's been a really good experience this year. The recreation department, they're really busy now that school's back. Our childcare, everyone's great. We have about 100 kids in that program, supporting them. Our senior center, we had 360 people that signed into the senior center this year. We delivered we offered 1,747 hot meals and 428 frozen meals. I think Brandon's a part of that. Thank you very much. We had 114 meals that were served at the senior center. And we also, I wanted to make sure that I talk about we had a 100% rating for our health inspection. So good job, Sarah, for doing that. The front, I wanted to say something about the front desk too. I kind of glossed over that, didn't talk about that, but we are continuing, we're right about the $15,000 visits per month. And that's really.
That's to the aquatic center and fitness center?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. Let's see, I did talk to Kellen before the meeting, and they had, this is in the packet, but last year, 2024, we had 4,493 rounds of golf. And this year, we have 5,107. So, great weather, lots of tournaments. And then, just really quick, I just want to say a couple things here at the end that I wrote down. Really quick. Okay, I met with the Newberg Fashion Festival Committee this week, and I let them know that for sure they were not going to be able to have fireworks at Rennie Field. And they were kind of hopeful that they might still be able to do that, but I told them that we are good to go on that, and that there will be construction equipment all around there anyway, you know? And so we were talking about different places for them to have the Newberg Fashion Festival, and they want to keep that entire festival together, meaning they would like the carnival to be kind of near the parade, but also near the vendors and the fireworks. And so that's going to be a really big space. And so right now we don't have anything to offer them, but we will certainly, you know, continue to look for places. Let's see. We participated in Peace Fest. So Becky and I ran a booth at Peace Fest, a carnival. That was really fun. I wanted to mention really quick, we've had to trespass 3 people from our facilities just in the last month. And so I was talking to Clay about it, and I said, you know, what would be really advantageous is if we could have, because we do call the non-emergency line, and I thought it would be very advantageous to have the police department come out and talk to us, because what we would like to know is, you know, what can we do, what should we do, and what does the police department want us to do, so that we can work together. Because what happens is they trespass people from our parks, and we don't really know about it. There's not that connection there. And then we trespass people, and the police department does not know that. They'll go out and there'll be somebody at Jakewood Park, and they don't know that person has been trespassed. So that's something that I've always wanted to do, but just with those 3, just in the last month, you know, we think it's important. So Coach, I'm going to say Chief Kosmicki, but I know him as Coach Kosmicki. He's going to come out and talk to us. So at our next staff meeting, so that'll be really great. And I think all of the coordinators and the full-time staff, I think that will be really great, you know, for those 2 agents, or for us to talk to each other. I want to shout out Brian. He hired a cleaning company. Our office is spotless. The golf course is spotless. The senior center is spotless. It's amazing. And that was a little thing that's a big thing. And Helen was telling me about it today. So thank you very much. That's great. I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
You've been busy.
We're so busy, yeah. In the packet, you'll see an email about Nicole Llewellyn, and every month I want to talk about, just very quickly, about one of our employees. And she's a sports coordinator. She's been with us for about 2.5 years, and she is outstanding. And she cares so much about kids in our community, and she's really offered a lot of programming that we've never offered before. And the most important thing is she is out there all the time. She's at the field, she's in the gym, she's working with all the coaches, she's working with the officials, you know, because we hire a lot of kids as officials, and there's a whole process there. So anyway, there's an email in here about how wonderful she is from an outside organization, but she's working tremendously hard, and we're really lucky to have her. So.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
What's happening in golf? No maintenance to the golf course, you know, it's real easy. They'll get up early.
Super simple, yeah. Nothing really going on. Wake up whenever.
Yeah, right.
Roll in. Yeah. No, we just got done with aeration, and the course is healing up, and looking forward to having a little bit of a slowdown in the season. That's all. Thank you.
How's irrigation out there? Or irritation is what they call it, I think.
The irritation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
It's coming tomorrow.
overall it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, there is, with that, there is some correspondence in the back of your packet. It's just some thank you letters, if you want to take a look at those. Not really any citizen comments other than those. So with that said, unless there's something else, we are officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for, it was a long meeting, we got a lot done.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.